Hello! Hello! It is February 19th, 2026. I'm Left Hand Stu. We made it to Thursday, friends! We made it through Thursday. It's almost 8 p.m. We're almost at Friday. Then it's almost the weekend. And who knows what man-made horrors beyond God's comprehension awaits us in the weekend. But tonight, it's the final NDP leadership race. Which is interesting, because it's still basically a month before they vote. So you'd assume there'd be another one, but nope. It's just this one. How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all having a good Thursday. It was a little bit quieter on the hill. We didn't have another floor crossing, so that was nice. Where do I have it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah, so it's the NDP leadership race starting at 8 p.m. Got about 5 minutes before this goes live. I think you got all 5 up there. But it does seem like this race is consolidating into Avi Lewis's race to win. Where's the fundraising number? Let's see if I can pull those up. Aim for breakaway and key debate. Pull this one up. Where are we? There we go. There we go. What we got? Oh yeah, the last French debate was supposed to be in French, but didn't really have much French. This is from 3 weeks ago. We'll watch this.
Hundreds showed up for an NDP leadership candidate with a populist message.
Is there something happening in Canadian politics right now? Right now it's happening under the surface. People aren't seeing it. This is a leadership race for a party that's supposed to be on life support.
Avi Lewis's campaign resembles
Zoran Mandani's bid has raised, I think, around $1 million. Or his campaign was saying that he had raised over $1 million, which is quite a chunk of change for an NDP leadership candidate. Considering that like the NDP raises around $3-ish million every quarter. And they've been going for a little bit close to 2 quarters now. Though those numbers came out in January. And they were only up until like the end of December. So that was like a quarter. Like Avi Lewis on his own raised about a quarter of what the party usually raises in a regular leadership race.
For New York City's mayor, with similar policies like government-backed grocery stores. April's federal election nearly wiped New Democrats off the map. Most of its MPs, even former leader Jagmeet Singh, lost their seats. These candidates are vying to replace him, and it's the last day to sign up to vote at the end of March.
I would say at this point there are 3 main frontrunners.
This former NDP strategist says this race is between Lewis, Heather McPherson, and Rob Ashton.
Still a couple months to go. I think anything could happen.
McPherson, a sitting Edmonton MP, is running to broaden the NDP's appeal to not just progressives, but liberals and conservatives.
I have talked a lot about how I want to build our party, how I want to make sure that this is a bigger table that more Canadians feel welcome within.
But this little-known dock worker and Labour leader from British Columbia wants to turn the NDP into a workers' party.
I'm not running to become a politician. I'm running to become a workers' politician. And so that means you see me in a coffee shop. If you think I've done something wrong, you come up to me and say, hey, Ashton, what are you thinking? What are you doing on this?
Months into the race, are Canadians paying attention?
Canadians are not closely watching this contest. I think that there's so much competition given, Trump and the Conservative leadership review.
With 2 months to go, there's still time for candidates to prove why their party is still relevant and why they are best placed to lead it. David Thornton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast.
Welcome, Matt. Welcome to the government team. It's a great honor to be on the same team as you at a crucial time for this city, for this province, for this country.
The Prime Minister.
Wasn't paying attention. And I think there was some stuff. Was there Avi Lewis news that came out? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, like what I would. It becomes a bit of a grab bag. So just, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have said how they're going to keep talking about those issues. But it encompasses so many other issues that you can get into it from different angles. And I do think that is an opportunity for the NDP. But going back to what Melanie said, it's about whether they are going to be listened to, seen as a credible option. Because while they're not seen as a credible option, they're just not going to get that. They're just not going to be considered to be in the running to deal with the issue. And I think that's going to be the big challenge for them.
Mathieu, je pense à l'ère de Jack Layton. Et sous Jack Layton, le NPD aspirait clairement à vraiment servir d'alternative gouvernementale. C'était certainement pas le cas avec Jagmeet Singh, qui, au lieu cherchait plutôt aller chercher à obtenir des concessions de la part du gouvernement Trudeau. Évidemment, le contexte maintenant est tout autre. On voit que le gouvernement Carney réussit pour l'instant à collaborer davantage avec les conservateurs. Étant donné cette...
This is a safe space for Americans, but I will ban you if I see a single one of you celebrating the hockey.
Nouvelle donne, à quoi doit aspirer le parti une fois qu'il aura un nouveau chef? Et comment doit-il tenter de se positionner dans ce nouvel échiquier politique maintenant?
Je pense qu'il faut regarder les circonstances. Jack Layton avait un trajectoire qui allait vers le haut. On augmentait la capacité du caucus, donc cette crédibilité-là venait un peu naturellement. Parce que Jagmeet, malheureusement, a fait face à une tendance inverse, donc on a tenté de faire des gains autrement, puis je pense que c'est tout à son honneur. Maintenant, pour le nouveau chef, pour revenir à la question, il faut être patient. Il faut avoir quelqu'un qui est réaliste. Puis je pense qu'il faut parler ainsi parce qu'on revient, ça va être un thème récurrent, je pense, ce soir, la crédibilité parmi nous trois qui se joignent à vous. Mais pour être crédible, il faut reconnaître que le parti va moins bien. Il faut être concentré, des enjeux régionaux, par exemple, des candidats qui vont permettre d'accroître la présence du parti à certains endroits. Puis en bâtissant cette crédibilité-là, un jour, peut-être avec le chef qui sera élu, peut-être avec un autre, on va pouvoir, on espère, pour le parti en tout cas, aspirer à autre chose. Mais je pense que le nouveau chef doit être, pour peut-être simplifier ça en un mot, être réaliste.
You know, I'm going to pick up on Jack Layton because, as you said, it was viewed as the natural alternative at that point to government. And you mentioned prairie pragmatism. And right now, when you look at the West, you have two new Democratic governments, British Columbia, Manitoba. You have the NDP in opposition in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. But in Alberta, you have Naheed Nenshi, who is openly talking about disassociating the provincial wing from the federal wing because he believes the federal wing is a drag on NDP fortunes in Alberta. Where has that conversation gone through this? That's my question. I'll pick it up again. And we're going to switch over to the debate right now. Let's go to New Westminster in British Columbia, the NDP leadership debate right here on CPAC.
Good evening and welcome to the final debate of the federal NDP leadership race. I kind of like that music introducing us. I'm Hannah Thibodeau, Executive Communications Officer at
Mantra, how's it going?
Affairs, and I will be your moderator
Welcome
for
back.
this evening. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that we are coming to you live from New Westminster, British Columbia, on unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Halkomelem speaking people. I also recognize the Kalay First Nation and all Coast Salish people on whose traditional territories we gather tonight. So thank you for that. We also, though, want to acknowledge the horrific attack in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Our thoughts are with the victims, their loved ones, and the entire community as they grapple with the shock and the loss. Now, in moments like this, we are reminded of the importance of coming together and caring for each other. I invite each of you to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you for that. Let's begin now. Tonight, these leadership...
Oh, you're different now. Hell yeah. This should be a good
will
debate.
Debate the priorities of members and communities right across this country. Now, the themes you will hear were shaped by submissions from New Democrats from coast to coast to coast, and here's what they range from: economic security and national sovereignty, the future and role of the party, rebuilding the party, foreign affairs and humanitarian aid, and energy and the environment. So the contestants here, they knew those themes in advance. What they did not know the specific questions. They didn't know them, their teams didn't know them. They're all here in my head, and they could change throughout the debate, so everybody be ready tonight. It's going to be a fun evening, so everybody take a breath. Now it's my pleasure to welcome the candidates here. We will introduce first Avi Lewis, Heather McPherson, Rob Ashton, Tony McQuail, and Tennille Johnston.
Coast to coast to coast, yeah.
So welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you. It's an honor for me to moderate this debate.
I think coast to coast may originate from like Coach's Corner. I feel like that's the first place I ever heard it.
It will run 90 minutes, mostly in English. There is one French section, though. We will start with opening statements from each of the candidates, and then we'll move through those themes. Now, in each theme, I will ask one question to each of the candidates. They'll have 45 seconds to answer that individually. After that, there will be an open debate section. I will also prompt in that open debate section, if it's going a little bit slower, we will move it right along, and we will encourage discussion that way. Now, before we end, each candidate will also get an...
I was reading something, so if Hannah actually said this and I missed it, but good quote from the CTV piece.
Individual question tailored to their experience,
where it was like,
to their platform, to their campaign.
Oh God.
Nobody
I
knows
just retweeted
what that
it.
is.
Why did it
I will
disappear?
Get that at the end. And
oh yeah, these 5 candidates what we've seen is that they violently agree on so many things. Tonight, I'm hoping that we can see them differentiate themselves from each other with the topics and the questions they've come up with. I'm really hoping you'll see that. That's from Hannah Thibodeau, the moderator.
Moment in time for our country. You know, the world is uncertain. Families are struggling, and working class Canadians are getting further and further behind. You know, today you will see all 5 of us agree on a lot of things. We are New Democrats, and we all believe in fairness, in equity, in looking out for your neighbor. So this race isn't about debating those values. It's about who can turn them into wins for people. You know, Canadians are depending on us to have their backs, to do what we need to do. We need more of us. I know how to win. I know how to build support. I know how to beat conservatives. We need a leader who can win. We need a leader who can rebuild, and I am that leader.
And you were bang on time with that 45 seconds, so that is a good start to this. Avi Lewis, you're up next.
Friends, we're at a fork in the road. Donald Trump is stomping all over the world, stoking fear and insecurity. And while Mark Carney defies him in Davos, at home, Liberals and Tories are caving to the U.S. and letting corporations hoard profits and hike the price of everything. So now the NDP has a clear choice. The same approach that brought us to an historic low in the last election, or a new vision that is unmistakably bold and courageous. Our campaign has proved this path is popular and can win. We've signed up members in 338 federal ridings, broken fundraising records, and hosted huge events packed with hundreds of people.
Toronto Star is a really good breakdown of this timeline.
Has already begun.
Okay, not bad. Only a couple seconds over, but we'll let
Team
you
Act.
Lewis. We are now going to go to.
This is why I should never be a pundit. I definitely thought Rob Ashton was going to run away with this from like my early first impression. But I guess I was like, it's seemingly it's been Lewis, but you never know how those like second round ballots will turn out.
And the working class just doesn't see themselves in us anymore. So they went and found another home. And so we need to bring them back. Otherwise, our ideas will remain just that, ideas. That's why I want to bring the party back to its working class roots, so we can win back the seats that we've lost and win a whole lot more.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. And I'm going to take those 5 seconds.
And your opinion counts for nothing today. Nobody American has anything to say to me today.
Tennille Johnston, a social worker, a city councillor from Campbell River, BC. and the first Indigenous person ever to be represented on a federal leadership ballot in Canadian political history. And I'm so grateful that that piece of history now lives with the NDP. I've traveled this country coast to coast to coast, and it has been absolutely amazing visiting tiny communities all over Canada. But the tragic part is that people are struggling everywhere you go. The cost of rent, groceries, gas, it's astronomical, and it just keeps going up and up and up. It's unacceptable that in a G7 country, we have over 10% of our population living in poverty. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's why we need a guaranteed livable basic income. We need a
There's a free, the
fossil fuel subsidies. We have to have true
French section. That'll be fun.
In this country with our First Nations.
Thank you, Tanil. And last but not least, Tony McQuail.
I'm Tony McQuail. I'm a parent and grandparent, a farmer for over 50 years, and a New Democrat for 46. Our campaign is focused on 4 R's: representation, dealing with the first past the post; regeneration, stop damaging and start healing the earth; redistribution, stop sucking out our collective wealth and start distributing it fairly; and redesign, shift from a corporate capitalist consumer ideology to a conserver community. As a farmer, I see our world from ground level. It's a very different perspective from those who have been making destructive decisions from the corner offices of corporate towers. We need radical change now.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody. Now we're kind of warmed up. Let's get into the debate portion. Here is our first theme: economic security and national sovereignty. We heard a few of you mention Donald Trump in here. A reminder, after I ask the first question here, each will have 45 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move into that open debate portion, which is 8 minutes long. So nobody has seen these questions to start off with. Let's start with this. The topic has largely been dominated by the U.S. President Donald Trump and the tariff war, and by Prime Minister Carney's efforts to retool Canada's economy to reduce our dependence on the United States. So here's the question. If Donald Trump picks up the phone tomorrow or jumps on and posts on Truth Social threatening more tariffs to pressure Canada, as a leader, would you retaliate immediately or negotiate quietly? And if retaliation is the answer, what does it look like? Is it a targeted tariff? Is it energy? Be specific, please. So, Mr. Lewis, you are first with 45 seconds.
Well, first I'd call the 2 Democratic Socialists who have shared private meetings with Donald Trump, Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico and Zoran Mamdani from New York, and figure out how they charmed him, because that seemed to go incredibly well. I think Canada needs to stand firm.
Debate. I can turn up the debate audio.
Clarity on the world stage that reflects an independent foreign policy and an independent domestic policy.
That was way down.
A Canadian shield to Trump-proof our economy, and retaliating doesn't look like a tariff war. That's playing into the much stronger force on the other side of the border. We need to rebuild our economic independence with a Green New Deal, a Canadian Green New Deal that will create millions of good, unionized, green energy jobs and many other pieces of economic independence I hope we can talk about throughout tonight.
Heather McPherson, your 45 seconds.
Listen, Donald Trump is the biggest threat that is facing our country right now, both economically and our sovereignty. And the way that we need to push back on that is to build our own economic sovereignty. You know, we need to be investing in workers. We need to be building with Canadian materials. We need to be building with good Canadian unionized jobs. You know, we need to raise wages. We need to legislate workers' rights into our laws. We need to be investing in building that infrastructure that will build up our country. You know, that's the east-west grid. That's rail. That's renewable energy. It's that investment, that economic sovereignty that will actually protect us from Donald Trump. That's how we fight back against Donald Trump.
Rob Ashton, 45 seconds.
So on my travels throughout British Columbia, I met this mill worker, and his biggest concern was about losing his job either in a week or in a month. And that's how a lot of Canadians feel right now.
Who is that one
But that's because of Liberals and Conservatives ruling on behalf of their
election
CEO friends and the ruling class.
Jagmeet
So we
Singh
have
was
to
asked the
change
question.
that.
He basically
And how are we
brought
going
up
to
this
change that?
lady
That's with my
and,
jobs
struggles, and
the reason I bring that up right
point,
now
come
is
on,
because that's how we fight Donald Trump.
You gotta
is by
get
creating
a second story.
economic security in this country, by creating good jobs,
Remembering that right
Canadian
now for no
industries for Canadian workers, by standing up against him and finding new fair trade partners in this world. And that's how you stand up to a bully.
Okay, Tony McQuail,
you'd be surprised how much of
the tariffs are an incredible opportunity for us to reconsider what our economy is for, to relocalize it and redesign it so that it works for Canadians and not Canadians working to enrich the global elites. We have to be thinking about sovereignty in a realistic terms, and in 2026, sovereignty is not going to come out of the barrel of a gun or out of a pipeline. It's going to come from reinvesting in education, healthcare, childcare, and regenerative agriculture to ensure that we actually can meet and are meeting the needs of Canadians inside. And we need to develop.
Well, because I think it was just because it was you can't pull off the same scam on people. They know you're doing the Obama thing. They can recognize it now, I think.
Nonviolent defense strategy that supports communities in developing unarmed civilian defense programs.
Thank you, Mr. McQuail. To Neil Johnston.
Yeah, so if Trump called, he'd get my answering machine. I'd be busy trying to lift the burden of economic insecurity off the backs of workers. Big oil, big telecom, these giants are recording record profits while we're not investing in Canada. Our retaliation strategy is investing in ourselves and seeing the huge worth that we are as a country within our own borders. We need to bring manufacturing and production into Canada. We need to stop sending out things like raw logs just to have that wealth created outside of our borders. Then we buy it back for more money. We truly have to invest in Canada, and we have to do it now, right down to the micro things like offering childcare. If we want to send hundreds of people back into our healthcare workforce, give them some support with taking care of their kids so they can go back to their care industry.
Okay, thank you. Everybody's bang on time. So far, I'm really happy with this group. Let's now start with the open debate for 8 minutes. Mr. Lewis, I am going to start with you. And here's the question. I heard from all of you. We have to invest in ourselves. However, we do rely on trade with the United States. Under President Donald Trump, is the United States an unreliable partner or a partner we can't afford to lose? And let me dig into this a bit more to give you a little more. Canada has committed to increase defense spending, and we did hear about defense as well. Stronger border measures, but we're not taking part in Trump's newly created Board of Peace or the International Security Force in Gaza. How would you define the balance between sovereignty, security, and alliance management at the moment? So people can jump in on this one, and I'll keep an eye out. So
to say that Trump is an unreliable partner is to state the crushingly obvious. We fought the free trade deals in the NDP and the labor movement and social movements on the left in the 80s and 90s because we knew it was bonkers to tie and bind our economy so tightly to such a dominant 10 times larger economy to the south. And so now we're living the vulnerability of those decisions, and we are at Trump's mercy. I can't believe you said Board of Peace with a straight face. These are ravings. They're not foreign policy. We have to be smart and take them on and take them seriously, but we can't participate in fantasies like the so-called Golden Dome and other Trumpian dystopias. We actually have to stand up for Canada, and that means negotiating firmly.
And not only negotiating firmly, but when the emperor is insane and has no clothing, somebody has to say it.
Here we go.
And when they
here's that
others will listen, and people start to have just because he's the president of the United States and can push a button that I've been living under the threat of all my life, the nuclear holocaust, doesn't mean you have to kowtow to him. And there are many people in the United States who aren't. But the things we need to be thinking about as Canadians is we need an embargo on military shipments to the U.S. now. Because not only is it bad when a country hits its own citizens with their military, but they're talking about 51st state. J.S. Woodsworth knew you shouldn't send scrap steel to Nazi Germany. We should not. We need a U.S. arms embargo now.
Ms.
Well, which is why I wrote to the Prime Minister and demanded that we stop sending weapons that are being used by ICE against American citizens. But we need to do more than that. You know, we need to continue to push this government to live up to its obligations to stop sending weapons to regimes that are going to use them against human rights abusers. And that continues to happen despite the fact that that is against international and Canadian law. But, you know, you talked, Hannah, about developing trade relationships, and I think that is something that we also need to look at. You know, we are a trading nation. We do need to have trade relationships. We need to trade interprovincially better, and we need to develop trading relationships aside from the United States.
Would you say Mr. Carney is doing a better job at that?
I think we need to do much more, and I think we need to do less with the United States, because let's be honest, CUSMA was something that Donald Trump signed. We have a trade relationship with this president, and he broke it. So any trade relationship he makes going forward, he is just as likely to break. He is completely unreliable.
Mr. Ashton.
So, like, Trump's a bully, and we all know it. And I've been fighting bullies since I was in grade 7, which was a couple of years ago. And the only thing that they understand is strength. Strength to push back on them. You know, our current prime minister, he talks a tough game, but then he folds. Poilievre, well, we've all heard that guy cheering on some of Trump's decisions. So we have to stand up for Canadian jobs in our industries. We have to invest in Canadian industries, but when we invest in Canadian industries, we have to invest in job creation with that. We also have to diversify our trade agreements. We have to diversify with countries that want to work with us, that want to be allies with us.
Yes, ANDP. And I think, because I'm like, the more I think about it, I'm like,
that's not a board of peace.
I think we might.
And I'm actually glad that Trump took our country off that board, because it would have been a black eye.
It might be good as is.
Tanil, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, so you asked if Carney was doing a better job, and I was listening to actually a CBC radio cast, and it was counting down kind of the different interprovincial trade barriers that were being broken down, and I was waiting for agriculture. I was waiting for food. I was waiting for Carney to finally enable Canada to feed itself and to support our farming and our agricultural industry in a good way, and it just wasn't there. And when we're sitting on such a beautiful country where we could easily feed ourselves and not have a major hunger problem, we have a prime minister that is not putting that first. He's leaving people in poverty across the country, and it's mind-blowing. And the shout out to, like, the Council of Canadians warned us about the free trade agreement.
Yep.
We had a solid heads up that this was not a great idea, and we embedded ourselves in those relationships with the United States, and it's going to take a very firm turn and investment to get us out of it.
So here's the thing, though. We're talking about Trump-proofing the economy. We're talking about a Canadian shield, an economic Canadian shield that will actually protect us from these tariff attacks. There's a lot of talk about how we're all the same, we all believe in the same policies. It's not entirely true. Our campaign has put forward the essential role of public ownership to double down on the things that make Canada Canada, not just our healthcare system, investing in the care economy where more than 3 million people, mostly women, work in long-term care, in childcare, and healthcare and education, a public option for groceries, cell phones, internet connection, a public bank through Canada Post and postal banking. These are measures emphasizing the responsibility of the government to step up and govern and use our public resources in the public interest. Not everybody on this stage is willing to go there, but that's the only way that Canada can build a Trump-proof economy.
Quick fixes today.
Sure, they're compatible. They're compatible.
The public grocery outlet isn't a quick fix. What we have to do, we have to push our federal government, and when we take power eventually, we actually have to start doing what's immediate, and that's price caps on groceries. Sure. That's price caps on telecoms. Stronger penalties and even jail time for companies that try to gouge our prices, try to gouge Canadian citizens. This is immediate, because right now, Christ, when I was a kid, it was $20 for a bag of groceries. Nowadays, it's $50, $60.
Yeah. Mr. McQuail, you want to jump in as well?
I think we need to think about an even more radical approach to say, what is trade for, and do we need it to have a healthy economy? Trade benefits those in the middle, but too often trade is based on cheap labor here and cheap and expensive products there. So we certainly need state-to-state trade, but we also need to say, what do we need as a society? How can we produce it ourselves? How can we relocalize it? And how can we make that work for Canadians? And you're right, that's not a cheap or quick fix, but in 1988, I took a float in 8 fall fairs in our area that said, Free Canada, trade Mulrooney. You know, we've had a lot of time to get into the trouble we're in. It'll take us some time to get out.
From the past.
But if we don't know where we want to go, we are never going to get there. So saying, we got to trade, we got to... No. Well, yes, agriculture is very dependent on trade, but can we restructure how we do agriculture in Canada so we meet our own needs and get paid fairly for that and don't destroy the environment trying to trade ourselves to prosperity?
Well, and I do think one of the things that we have to come back to is that the way we protect our sovereignty is by protecting our economy and making sure that it is working for all Canadians. And that does involve making sure that we are investing in building things here. You know, we used used to have Connaught Labs here. We used to be able to build our own pharmaceuticals in this country. We couldn't do that during COVID-19. You know, we have a housing crisis, a national housing crisis. We should be investing in the homes that people need to live in right now. We should be investing in our healthcare system, investing in those things.
A really big economic, immediate impact. Close the infrastructure gap for nations across this country. If you invest in closing that gap, we're talking about over $600 billion that's going to go into our economy. These aren't tiny numbers. And this is also supporting people to live in a great way, to make over 7 million jobs in a 2-year time period. This is just an unreal opportunity. And Carney turns and he invests in freaking pipelines and mines and these things that are not going to bring money to our economy now.
Freaking snakes.
Okay. We finished that segment already. That was fast. I did not have to bring in a lot of prompts on that. So moving on to topic 2 as well. This is on energy and the environment, something I'm sure we all would love to discuss, especially now. Provincial NDP governments and the federal NDP openly clash over major projects, including oil and gas and pipelines. Does the federal NDP need a clearer, unified position on resource development, and what would that be? So we are going to start with the 45-second round, and Ms. McPherson, you're first.
Thank you very much. And listen, let's be very clear. There is a climate crisis right now. As a member of Parliament, I've taken some big climate action in our Parliament. You know, I took on the CEO of Imperial Oil. I brought forward legislation that would stop coal mining in the Rocky Mountains. You know, I worked with Indigenous people in northern Alberta to stop the release of tailings into the Athabasca Delta. And I have a plan going forward to deal with the climate crisis that we are facing that involves stopping oil and gas subsidies, you know, investing in renewables, you know, making sure that we are building a plan that brings workers along, that workers are at the center. Because if workers aren't part of every single environmental plan in this country, then that plan is doomed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McPherson. Mr. Ashton, you're next.
So I come from a province that burns 4 months out of the year, and then the next month it floods horribly. And that's true across this country, and these burn seasons get longer and longer as we go. You see, climate is a class war because big polluters profit and their friends run away with a pocket full of money, when it's the working class at the end of the day that pay the ultimate price in their communities. Climate action has to do 3 things to fix this. We have to cut pollution, lower the cost for families, and create good union jobs. But to win this war, you'll need to be united and not divided, because division is the weapon of the boss.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Mr. McQuail, you're next.
If you visit our website, TonyMcQuailGreenProgressive.ca, there's a piece on it that talks about a holistic goal for Canada. And it is something that I hope could help provincial and federal NDP work together with our riding associations and the people of Canada to say this is a vision that is hopeful in terms of both the environment and the economy and the kind of world we want to build. What we have to understand when we talk about the environment is every time we take a breath, a drink, or a bite, the environment isn't something out there. It's now something inside us and becomes part of us. So we have to have plans and decisions that build a healthy environment as part of building a reasonable economy.
Tenille Johnston.
Yeah, where I come from, people work in resource-based industries. They work in forestry, fishing, energy, and like Rob offered, wildfires come in, we're suffering from floods and droughts, and they're already reshaping what our communities look like and how we move about day to day. People there don't deny climate change whatsoever, but where we struggle is where we see the clear path to the next job when we talk about job transitions. A serious climate plan has to remove the $30 billion that we give fossil fuel industries year over year over year. That money needs to go back into renewables, retrofits, transit, care work, the land restoration, so we can rewild areas where we've had a detrimental impact to our environment.
And Heather McPherson. No. Sorry.
Again, I can do it again.
No,
I'm happy to go again.
I just turned and I looked at you. Abby Lewis, my apologies.
I love this party. To be in a national leadership debate and have unanimity on the stage that the climate emergency is a frontal issue. We talk about it second in a debate, not left to the end. But there are differences among us. I believe it's time for the NDP to tell the truth. We have to get off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And we're the only party Canadians can trust to do it without throwing a single worker under the bus. Workers can't transition into a promise. You can't feed your family on a slogan. That's why we need a Canadian Green New Deal to create 1 million good union climate jobs on an emergency basis under public ownership. Fossil fuel workers need those jobs waiting for them. Carney's ripped up decades of climate policy. It's our time to lead on climate.
I'm going to get to that in just a bit on the climate policy. I want to start with you. That's why I was coming to you last time, because I'm starting with you this time. You're from Alberta. That's where your riding is. Alberta is central to this debate. How does the NDP compete in the West without alienating voters whose livelihoods depend on energy?
Yeah. Listen, I am the daughter of a truck driver. My family worked in the oil and gas sector. I'm proud of the contribution that Alberta made to building Canada. But I also want us to be building a future-facing economy. You know, I want us to be building a future where my children want to stay and work in Alberta. And that means investing in renewables. But I want to be clear, because you brought this up earlier. You know, we need to work with the provincial governments, the provincial NDP across this country. You know, we need to work with them because what they are achieving for the people in their provinces is important. You know, I think about what Rachel Notley achieved and how she was able to cut child poverty in half. I think about the role she played in getting us off coal power, you know, reducing our emissions, and how important that was. We cannot be picking fights with the provincial NDP. So we have to work together.
Let me just ask you this.
Key.
You have Naheed Nenshi in a room together with the Premier of BC. How do you negotiate those two premiers?
Well, I can tell you it doesn't help. An MOU by Mark Carney and Danielle Smith that pits British Columbians against Albertans, that pits people against each other during a national sovereignty crisis. You know, what we need to do is work on those things that as New Democrats that we believe in, those values that will move us forward. And not be a burden to the provincial parties, because the provincial parties are making life better for the people in their provinces.
So let me come to you, Mr. Lewis, because you oppose fossil fuel expansion.
Yes.
Is that position electorally viable in energy-producing provinces, or does it limit the NDP?
Of course it is. Albertans have known for decades that we need to diversify our economy in fossil fuel-producing regions. Everybody knows it. And the fossil fuel industry keeps stoking division and presenting us with new pipeline projects as an existential necessity to kick the can down the road and delay that time. 92% of Albertans believe that the industry should pay, as is the law, polluter pays, to clean up the mess in one of our most beautiful places in all of Canada, in Alberta. There are hundreds of thousands of oil wells that have reached the end of their life. They're leaking in farmers' fields and local municipalities.
It's like, this isn't even to undercut, like, because it's genius. It's like the concept is basically like, I think, like, Poilievre's going around, he's making his special Olympic chili, and he's going to the grocery store, and he's grabbing all the different ingredients, and it's this thing to, like, on affordability. And it's one of those just like, fucking, how have they not thought of this before? This is so, it seems so obvious only in hindsight, clearly, but it's such a good concept that it's almost shocking that they never, that they haven't done this already, where it's like, this is, but I guess, I mean, it's the Olympics, but you could have done it for like the, I don't know, Grey Cup. Just obviously, someone still has to think of the idea, no matter how obvious it may seem in hindsight.
Do not have the money. They download these wells, abandoned and orphaned wells, to companies that go bankrupt, and they get rid of any responsibility for cleaning them up. That's decades of unionized labor for the very workers who dug those wells to clean up rather than further contaminate the land.
Mr. McQuail, you want to jump in?
We also need to ask, is climate change a problem or a symptom of a bigger problem? And I would say it is a symptom of a bigger problem, which is a society that has gotten addicted to using way too much energy. We are dumping millions of years of fossilized sunlight into our atmosphere instead of maintaining the carbon cycle that we're all a part of. And so we have to talk about how do we not only change the economy and transition it to renewables, but how do we redesign to drastically reduce the amount of energy and resources that economies use? Because our economic growth, which has been promoted for the 45 years since I got involved in politics, is actually becoming a cancer on the planet. So when we have these opportunities, and renewable energy is a huge opportunity, not just in terms of jobs, not just in terms of the environment, but in terms of costs and the cost to people. We put up a passive solar house in the 1970s, put up an on-grid or a grid-connected wind generator. We've got solar panels. These all help reduce your costs if you do these well and effectively. So that's what we need to be doing as Canadians, saying, what can we build to build the transition and get their jobs? But right now, it is far more effective to switch to renewable energy in terms of jobs per amount of energy produced, and also in terms of the economic value being spread across the country, not just on narrow pipelines or individual wells.
Tanil, let me ask you this. Sure. If Indigenous nations choose ownership in oil and gas projects, is it the role of the federal NDP to tell them no?
No, I think it's the role of the federal NDP to work with nations to bring forward a prosperous Canada for all, which is actually the title of the Assembly of First Nations strategic plan, is Prosperity for All. We really, truly, I'm going to speak for a lot of Indigenous people across the country, we care about our country. We want prosperity for all. We truly believe those words when we say them. And we're talking about transition. One of the biggest piece of misinformation out there, I believe, is the fact that people think that getting jobs in renewable industries don't pay, that you're not going to be able to make the same amount of money working as an engineer building a turbine as you are if you're working as an engineer in an oil field. And that's just not true. These jobs are good paying jobs. They're jobs that are better for your body, mind, your spirit. You can have a good, amazing paying job in a renewable energy industry. It doesn't have to be this misinformation of, well, I'm not going to make as much, or there are not going to be as many jobs. That's just not true. So we need to get the education out there that demonstrates what type of workforce we're going to need to bring forward this renewable industry that we want across Canada. And we also need to set up the education system to bear that. And it needs to be free. We have to have free education to train our new workforce.
Mr. Ashton, let me bring you in on this debate. You talk about protecting workers, and I want to talk about the Indigenous part of it too. When energy jobs are tied to Indigenous-owned projects, does opposing development risk putting New Democrats at odds with both Labour and reconciliation?
So look, to win this war, this climate war, we need workers, Indigenous, non-Indigenous workers. But we have people on the stage right now that are going to stand against plans like the BC Transmission Power Line, or plans to build like the Port of Churchill. And we're sending more workers to the Conservative Party like that. And so when we say we need to shut down industries without jobs already being there, we just send more workers to the Conservatives. Climate action needs to be centered on workers and Indigenous people, and that includes Indigenous projects. We have to have an open mind here. We have to be able to bring new projects along, to bring workers along with that, to bring Indigenous communities along with that, and bring the rest of the communities across this country along with that as well.
Well, I think that was referencing Mr. Lewis.
You're calling out the side shot there? Rob, that was very restrained for you. I appreciate that.
We're in the debate portion, so
listen,
go ahead.
We're a big country, we're an affiliated party, and we're allowed to have differences with our provincial sections. I've had warm conversations with my Premier David Eby's office, with my friend Wab Kinew, with Nahid Nenshi, and we are allowed to have differences on specific issues because we support each other as New Democrats. When I spoke to Nahid Nenshi, I told him that I love the way that he stood up against Daniel Smith's disgusting use of the notwithstanding clause, attacks on teachers, attacks on trans kids. Nahid Nenshi needs to be the next Premier of Alberta. And we have some profound differences around fossil fuels. And he was asked
how do you work that
because
out?
Because listen, Nahid answered it himself. He was scrummed by reporters in Ottawa, and they were like, what about this Lewis thing? And he was like, this is the UCP when they're desperate and lashing out. These are the ways they try to turn us against each other. I'm not buying it. He said, who cares? I think Albertans are smarter than that. So I'm going with Nahid right now. We shouldn't be doing our opponents' work for each other. We can stand together as New Democrats and have democratic disagreements around crucial issues of public policy.
I know we're out of time, but I'm going to give you 20 seconds, Heather.
Yeah, listen, I agree with what Tony said in terms of this is an opportunity for us. This is a huge opportunity. But we cannot be picking fights with our provincial parties, and I have seen that happen in the past. You know, we have people who have picked those fights. This is an opportunity. This is where we can go. And if we put workers at the center, and if we have a plan, then we actually can build a forward-facing economy that gets people working, that builds our country, that builds a forward-facing future for all of us.
Okay, we did go a little bit over. That's my fault. We are moving to the next section. This is going to focus on rebuilding the party. Our next question comes from the NDP in Quebec. After the video is done, each of you will have 1 minute to answer. So we're giving you 15 extra seconds. To answer that question, it has to be answered in French. If you don't answer in French, we're going to cut you off. However, in the debate portion, you can choose to answer in either French or English. So let's play the video.
Bonjour, mon nom est Malcolm Lewis-Richmond. Je suis impliqué au NPD depuis une décennie maintenant. Et l'année passée, j'étais candidat dans Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, Westmount. Je suis aussi membre du conseil d'administration de la section Québec du NPD et membre du conseil fédéral. Et je me rappelle toujours en 2011, quand le NPD a gagné le plus grand nombre de sièges de son histoire au Québec. Mais malheureusement, depuis, nous avons presque été rayés de la carte au Québec. Alors, la question pour vous, quelles sont vos idées pour renverser notre déclin dans la belle province?
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that question from the NDP in Quebec.
Merci beaucoup pour cette question du NPD au Québec. Avez-vous 5 minutes?
À se connecter avec la vie quotidienne québécoise. On doit recommencer à nouveau. La route vers la victoire du NPD passe par le Québec. C'est bien connu, c'est une cliché. Il faut avoir un plan pour conduire cette route. Et pour moi, il y a quelques éléments spécifiques. On doit retisser nos relations avec le mouvement syndical au Québec, le plus fort du Canada. Il faut avoir une offre politique ciblée à la majorité progressive au Québec, le plus fort au Canada. Et ça implique une emphase sur les services publics et actions climatiques. Et plus encore, l'autonomie pour la section Québec du parti. Nos politiques doivent être déterminées par les membres du NPD au Québec, pas décidées et dictées par Ottawa. C'est comme ça.
Merci beaucoup. Heather McPherson.
Well, c'est vrai, et c'est pas une cliché. La reconstruction de notre parti passe par le Québec. Tous les candidats doivent pratiquer le français, et c'est une priorité pour moi. Pour rebâtir un vrai parti pan-canadien, il faut reconnaître l'importance de la culture, de la langue, de l'histoire du Québec. Le Québec est uni, mais nous devons y rebâtir de la même manière que partout au Canada. La reconstruction du parti passe par la circonscription. On doit nommer nos candidats plus tôt et être prêts. On doit aussi augmenter le membership. Les Québécois ont une place à notre table et chaque membre a une voix dans le parti. Je sais comment faire le travail. Je fais le travail. Je suis prête.
Merci beaucoup. Rob Ashton.
Pour moi, c'est veut dire rebâtir la confiance avec les travailleurs. On doit regagner ce qu'on a perdu. Le vécu trop cher, c'est pas de l'or. On doit montrer aux gens le NPD à la solution. Et oui, on a besoin du Québec pour gagner. Je sais qui je dois parler mieux français pour connecter avec les Québécois et les francophones. On a besoin d'organisateurs et des liens avec les syndicats. Et on doit parler aux gens de ce qui est important. J'ai vu ramener le NPD à ses racines, une partie qui se bat, qui parle vrai et qui recule devant rien. C'est comme ça qu'on va gagner Je suis le bon choix pour ça.
Tony McQuail.
Pour reconstruire le NPD, nous devons soutenir nos associations de conscription et leur fournissant de l'information et l'impartation d'aides qui fonctionnent partout au Québec et au Canada. Nous avons besoin d'une coalition verte progressiste qui inspire confiance aux Québécois et aux Canadiens. Nous devrons collaborer avec des autres partis et mouvements sociaux. Bien avant la prochaine élection, cette coalition verte devra présenter un programme compréhensible pour tout.
Sorry, ANDP. Trump's doing alien stuff. This is from Truth Social. Based on the tremendous interest shown, and Obama basically admitting it on a podcast, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and unidentified flying objects, and any other and all information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America.
Les associations de circonscription et les mouvements sociaux devront travailler ensemble pour sélectionner un seul candidat qui représentera le programme de la coalition verte aux élections.
And Tanil Johnston.
Merci pour la question. Je respecte la langue française et le Québec. Je respecte la déclaration Sherbrooke. On a besoin de changement dans notre parti. On doit faire grandir les partis.
Well, here's the thing, where it's like, is Trump being distracted, or is this the Epstein stuff is getting a little bit too hot? So like, all right, we're gonna have to admit that aliens are real. They're onto us. We either tell them about the aliens or we all start going to prison. That's what they're thinking in the Trump administration.
Oh, finissez les associations. À droit, Roman et les travailleuses et travailleurs avec nous. On a besoin le mouvement et tout de yon. On a besoin de nos nations autochtones. On est là pour tout le monde, mais en premier, on doit gagner.
Thank you all. This is the open debate portion of this. This is 5.
Merci beaucoup. C'est la portion de débat ouvert. C'est 5 minutes. Vous pouvez répondre en anglais ou en français. J'avais posé la question en anglais. Mon français n'est pas assez bon. Alors, commençons avec cette question. Pourquoi est-ce que les électeurs au Québec devraient faire confiance à un leader qui ne peut pas communiquer avec eux dans leur langue maternelle, monsieur?
Dans un chef qui ne peut pas communiquer
so we can have
dans
confidence
la langue
in a leader who cannot communicate in the Quebecers' language.
Canada, il y a
everywhere throughout Canada, there are francophone communities, and we cannot forget them.
So, pas seulement
but it's not only a question of speaking French. We have to know the unique history of Quebec. We have to know the culture.
I like how they didn't even attempt to
there is, in a sense, a Quebec nation of Quebecers, and these Quebecers deserve an NDP leader who knows their culture. It's not only a question of language.
Je laisse.
Would you commit to becoming fully bilingual, and by what time? And what time frame?
Oui, c'est en marche. Oui.
Time frame?
I think we're all pretty committed to becoming fully bilingual.
By what time frame? Sorry, Mr. McQuail, just 1 second. By what time frame, please?
I think being fully bilingual is going to take at least a year of solid commitment to the language. And in my opinion, as someone who's spent my adult life trying to retain any ounce of my native Likwala language, where we only have like 6 fluent speakers left, I totally understand and wholeheartedly live holding on to your language as a vital component of your culture. And I think understanding that and reaching out to Quebec and offering that relational history of retaining language is huge. I think what Quebec has been able to do with holding on to their Francophone community and their language is absolutely amazing. And it's something that we've struggled to do in Canada with numerous nations across this country where our language dialects have been decimated by colonialism and Western culture. So I think we have a lot to learn from Quebec and how we retain languages and move forward with more language culture in Canada. I mean, in BC, we only have one Francophone school district for the entire province. We need to fix that.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. McQuail. Go ahead.
That's okay. Well, I want to be perfectly honest. As somebody who has 2 years of high school French and is going to turn 74 in March, I doubt that I will become negotiatingly fluent en français in my lifetime. That is what translators are for. And if I deal with a native community, I will need a translator to speak with someone who doesn't speak English. But when we had Katimavik billets, I got on really well with the Francophone billets who were working class as opposed to the Anglophones who came from Rosemont in Toronto. And so what we need to understand is I do speak better with Mother Nature than a good many people. And I don't think we're in a crisis where the Francophone language or the Francophones in Quebec are going to disappear. But our planet is disappearing before our eyes, and we need somebody who understands that language.
Il y a deux langues officielles au Canada. C'est pas une question de négociation.
There are two official languages in Canada. It's not a question of interpretation or translation. There's two languages.
McPherson, because we're going to come to you next. You've highlighted your experience. You've been a member of Parliament since 2019. You understand federal politics. Given that Quebec is an essential part of forming government, why wasn't becoming bilingual a priority?
Well, pour moi, c'est une grande priorité pour ma famille.
For me, it is a huge priority for my family. For example, my daughter speaks French.
Parle français très bien. C'est important pour moi quand mon époux et moi registrons ma fille pour l'école. C'est une immersion. Mais c'est difficile à l'Alberta. C'est pourquoi c'est nécessaire nous protégeons la langue française au Québec, mais aussi une autre circumscription, autre province dans le pays. Par exemple, Edmonton, Strathcona, my riding is the French Quarter. You know, and we have fought hard. I have fought hard for Campus Saint-Jean. I have fought hard to make sure that we are respecting and protecting French language in Alberta and across the country.
Thank you. And Mr. Ashton, let me ask you, you lead a national union representing workers across the country for more than a decade. In that role, how did you engage with Francophone workers, and why did learning French not become a part of the national leadership responsibility?
So we don't have members in Quebec. We're a BC-based union, but to answer your original question about what it means and to learn French, and I learned this lesson when I was in Gatineau having an event.
Yeah. But if McPhail was in the running,
what does the French language mean to Quebecers? And it goes back to the Quiet Revolution.
Translators.
When Quebecers took back their power from the church. It's when I learned that
to suggest that
French the English language was the language of the ruling class and the French language was the language of the working class. So I'm committed wholeheartedly to learning French.
Okay, and we are out of time for this segment, so we are going to move on to the next one. So I appreciate your answers on that one. The NDP, this one is the future and role of the party. The NDP currently governs in British Columbia and Manitoba, and we've had a little bit of this discussion throughout, but we're going to get in a bit more. It's governed in Alberta, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Yukon. Why can New Democrats win provincially, but they can't seem to win federally? Mr. Ashton, you first.
Canadians are better, we're weak. It's the working class that pays the price. So we have to change this. We have to build on the provincial successes that we've been having and not undermine them. You see, that means real power for our members, real power for our EDAs, discussions on shop floors and not in boardrooms. Show working people that we hear them, that we get them, and we're going to fight like hell for them. That's how we're going to win downtown. That's how we're going to win in the suburbs. And that's definitely how we're going to win in rural ridings. Thank you.
So is that the fact that the ideas haven't been brought forward to the federal part of the party? I'm trying to understand.
Because communication, right?
It's
we have to be able to talk to people. We have to be able to talk to people across the country. We have to be able to understand and listen to them. And a lot of our provincial sectors have actually been able to understand and actually listen
shocking
to what Canadians want in their provinces.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. McQuail.
Well, the first past the post electoral system is a great handicap, not only to the national party, but to the provincial parties. My biggest regret is that in 1990, the Ontario NDP did not work to bring in proportional representation.
It's gonna
because
be,
we now
be
had
some goddamn
phony majority governments
like if there's
under
any
Doug
big
Ford.
headlines of the night, it's
yes, our provincial parties
the French
have
stuff,
had
like
some
the
success,
NDP were getting
but they have
dinged on
also
the French
often
debate
worked
already.
a long time in the
French
wilderness
debate
because of first past the post, which ensures that working people do
to,
not get representation in Parliament or in their legislatures in proportion to how we would vote.
It is a fair, because it's like she's already bilingual.
And then we start voting strategically, and it's been a big impact nationally.
Okay, Tenille Johnston.
Yeah, I think we can win. I think we absolutely can win federally, but we have to be going to places that maybe we haven't been before. We have to be reconnecting with ridings that we've left behind for decades, and there's ridings out there that we have not been present in that are ready for change and want to mobilize and want to have that big win for us federally. The changes we want to see don't come from playing the governmental conscience for the federal government. We want to see big, bold changes like a guaranteed livable basic income, like a progressive wealth tax. And these are things that the Conservatives and Liberals are never going to get behind, and we have to do from a position of power. We don't want a softer version of the status quo. We want that big, bold change that can really secure equity across the country for Canadians.
Mr. Lewis? Carrying right on from what Tenille is saying, our campaign has shown that despite our devastating loss in the last election, the NDP is not just reviving, we are already soaring back to life through the very thing that makes us special, our members. In just a few months, our campaign has built momentum in fundraising and memberships and crowds that everybody can see. And we've done it by sharing a bold, ambitious vision that can never be confused with that of the Liberal Party. That's key. And we've used a distributed organizing model that trusts our members. That's how we're going to win back party status and more in the next election. Local members and regional organizers are free to choose the techniques and the messages that work in their communities. The central party doesn't try to control them, but supports them and resources them. We're already coming back on our campaign.
Heather McPherson.
Listen, New Democrats are New Democrats. You know, whether we are provincial or federal New Democrats, we are the same. We share the same values. So we need to be working together to achieve those things for Canadians. I have seen what happens across this country when New Democrats are elected. You know, it is important because it makes life for the people that live in those provinces better. And so we need to get more New Democrats elected. That's how we do this. And we do that by organizing year-round. You know, we had a model in Edmonton, Strathcona. When I was elected in 2019, we chose to expand, to do year-round organizing, to get candidates selected early, to work with other riding associations, to give the power back to members. That's what we need to do to rebuild our party. That's the work that I have been doing. That's the work I'll continue to do as the leader.
We are now going to move into the debate portion. Some working class voters, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Ashton, left the NDP because they felt the party didn't understand the economic anxiety at the time. What would you change? Just one thing would you change to win them back? And we'll start with you, Mr. Ashton.
Talking about what matters to Canadians. Jobs, affordability, housing. And that's what we're doing on my campaign, is that's what we're talking to people about. Because when you've got a guy like Poilievre that is strutting around and pretending to be a worker, well, he's about as much as a worker as I am a flower girl.
He did lure over a lot of the workers in the last election campaign.
Poilievre's pretty slick as snot, right? But what we're finding through our campaign, there's a young fella in Brantford. He came up to me and said he voted Conservative in the last election. But he signed up to our party so he could follow and vote for our campaign. And that's what's happening at every city that we go to, because they understand the messaging, that we're listening, that we're going to fight for them. We're going to bring people back to our party where they belong. We're not going to scare them away.
I think that's one thing to, have the big, bold ideas and say all the big things and create all the excitement around it, but you have to show up. This is a big thing that I felt we weren't doing enough of. We weren't showing up.
What does that mean exactly?
Physically go to these places, shake the hands, say hi, sit down, close the mouth, and listen with both ears so that you're absorbing what just happened in the last election especially. We had a tough go. And I can tell you for sure, Poilievre was in my riding way too much to make me comfortable. He kept having meetings in my community, and that was 3 years before the last election. We visited ridings that haven't seen a leader or a leadership candidate in over 2 decades.
So you're blaming the former leader for not showing up?
I'm not blaming the former leader from showing up, because our party is made by the movement of the people. We are bigger than one person, and we have to show up for each other. Not going to the places and spaces where we have big opportunities is not helping us. Prince Albert, huge opportunity in Prince Albert. A lot of people might not see that. Prince Albert has a very high Indigenous population. And people tell me all the time, well, Indigenous people don't vote. I'm like, well, have you gone and had a conversation with them? Have you met with their leadership and talked about where they're at and what they need and what their priorities are and where they want partnership from the federal government? No, we haven't. So we have to go and build these relationships in community, not on Zoom, and bring those folks into our party in a really good way. That is a huge untapped potential that we could be bringing into the fold as a party, and we're not doing it. So there's, huge opportunity.
Mr. McQuell.
And we have to rebuild the party from the ground up so that we strengthen the foundation of the party across the country. I mean, I got involved in 1980 because I wanted Ed Broadbent to be our prime minister, and I wanted the NDP to be the government. And you ask, what's our role? Our role is not to sit on the sidelines and try and guilt or shame the Liberals and Conservatives into doing what's right. We need to get into positions where people can actually see us governed. And when they have, we have health care because Tommy Douglas showed what could be done. And then the Liberals and Conservatives got scared that, now the CCF might form a federal government. Let's bring in health care. And now we're losing it to Danielle Smith and Doug Ford strangling it or starving it.
When I first heard them,
I had the exact same thought. That's the role I want to see for the NDP. But to do that, we have to rebuild the foundation of our riding associations, make sure the communication is two-way and not just about asking about money. How about information on how we could strengthen our riding associations, what's working with other riding associations, what our MPs and MPPs are doing, and what other countries are doing to solve the problems that are on people's minds, be it access to health care, food pricing, or jobs, so that we actually can show people what could be done and how we could do it, and that we have the strength to do it so they might vote for us.
Thank you, Mr. McQuell. Mr. Lewis, I want to come to you because you argue for being bold, not liberal light. Those are your words. That appeals to activists, but elections are math.
Yeah.
And we have to be frank.
To Canadians, Hannah.
If you refuse to court centrist liberals, where does your growth come from?
That's not the way it is at all, actually. But thanks for the opportunity to clarify.
You're welcome.
This is where you see the shared values. We got to show up. We got to talk to working class Canadians. Danielle, Rob, Tony, Heather knows the same thing. We need to win. How do we do it? This is what we need to focus the conversation. We launched this campaign laser focused on the everyday emergency of just trying to get by in an impossible, unfair, and rigged economy. We're the only party that has a story for Canadians about why life is unaffordable, why you're crying at the supermarket checkout, because Galen Weston is worth $18 billion, and because 5 grocery chains dominate the industry and price gouge and collude. That's why we put out a public option for groceries. And we got incredible response, Hannah and Rob, you must know this, from Conservatives. Conservatives are really interested in a public option for groceries because Conservatives understand that the economy is rigged and we live in a monopoly economy. We share values, but we have different solutions, and we're going to win by offering solutions that are actually as big as the crises we face that will solve the crisis of working class life.
On the back of all the affordability is also we should have free memberships. So we shouldn't be charging $10 for people to come join our party when we know that they're being crushed by the capitalist economy that the Conservatives and Liberals love.
Well, here we go.
We need to change our approach to bringing people into the NDP family.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. McPherson, you wanted to get in there too.
I did want to say we got to come back to rebuilding our party. And to rebuild our party, you're right, we do need to show up. It's why I have door knocked from Smithers to St. John's. You know, it is why I have been doing this work for years. You know, it is how we expanded the number of people that we could get elected in Alberta. And we've got to continue to do that work. And that is working with the riding associations. That is training our members. It is supporting our members. It is making sure that vetting process is transparent and fast. You know, it is making sure that we're giving the resources to our riding associations to do the work that we are asking them to do. And ultimately, we've got to go to our members and we have to trust them. We have to trust them to help us rebuild the party. The party is the members.
Okay, Mr. Ashton, sorry, Mr. Ashton first and then Mr. McQuail.
So we talk about rebuilding the party, and I'm glad to hear that my friend has a good relationship with the premiers and premiers and waitings of the provinces. I'm glad to see that he knows that he's got to talk to the provinces and have a good relationship with them, and that he's grown. Because about a decade and a half ago, something was dropped from the federal NDP that absolutely destroyed the Alberta NDP's chance ever again for being re-elected. Up until the head took over.
That's pretty heavy.
And so I'm really happy to see that he's grown and he's become a stronger New Democrat.
I hear a little bit of tension there, so I'm going to come to you, Mr. McQuail. I'm going to
Democrat. So I'm with
Ashton first and then Mr. McQuail.
I was making a note. Sorry.
We talk about rebuilding the party, and I'm glad to hear that my friend has a good relationship with the premiers and premiers and waitings of the provinces. I'm glad to see that he knows that he's got to talk to the provinces and have a good relationship with them, and that he's grown. Because about a decade and a half ago, something was dropped from the federal NDP that absolutely destroyed the Alberta NDP's chance ever again for being re-elected.
What did Avi Lewis do? Was Avi Lewis?
And so I'm really happy to see that he's grown and he's become a stronger New Democrat.
What did Avi Lewis do?
I hear a little bit of tension.
What is he talking
I'm
about?
going to come to you, Mr. McQuail. I'm going to let Mr. Lewis respond to that.
Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to clarify. First of all, the LEAP was 10 years ago.
Oh, the LEAP manifesto.
10, 15
okay.
years ago.
I was like, what is? He wasn't a. When was he
an
elected?
Exercise in building a big coalition, building a bigger table, as Heather might say, among people who didn't share all of the same views, from environmentalists to the union that represents oil sands workers. A senior official from Unifor was in the document making changes until the last minute. So we built a big coalition. We launched the LEAP manifesto. The head of the biggest union in Canada, QP National, signed it. The head of the Canadian Labour Congress at the time signed it, as well as dozens of other unions. When we came to the Edmonton Convention with it, we worked through the leader's office to make sure everybody knew it was coming, a federal resolution at a federal convention. And the resolution itself was itself a compromise that just said that
is different derogatory?
This vision,
I didn't know that. Apologies. I've been using that. I thought that was just a fun little nickname.
Of the members on the floor in Edmonton voted for that resolution. So I think I'm the same New Democrat I've always been.
We're over time, but I'm going to give you 20 seconds. Yeah, okay, just 20.
Well, give him a bit.
I thought it was just a silly little nickname.
Like 10.
20 and 15.
Okay.
Go ahead.
He hasn't spoken enough. You can give
what is happening?
You guys are so polite.
God damn it.
Mr. McQuail.
Someone say something.
So I'm already over time.
I've been saying that we need to throw our arms wide and make sure that people know we want everybody, including disenchanted liberals who've been getting a smoke job in terms of what they think they're voting for, and concerned conservatives who don't like pit bull politics and understand that cooperation actually is a conservative value.
Rob, did you want to just come in? You're fine. Okay. We are going to move on to the next section if you want to jump in on something in the next section. This is a continuation of that one. I'm going to have to take some time out of it. My apologies. We're going to focus a bit more on how you would deal with this Prime Minister and this Liberal government. We did see another floor crosser yesterday from the Conservatives going over to the Liberals. It's clear that this Prime Minister would like to have a majority government. So would you find ways to work with Mark Carney and the Liberals to avoid an election? And it's 45 seconds each. Tony McQuail, I'll start with you.
Well, I think we need to come out of this federal leadership campaign strong and united. And I think we have to show him that the New Democrats are a lot stronger. If you want to hit us, this is not the time, because we're not down. We have an incredible group of candidates here who've been building the party, and we have to reach out and speak. Come out of this campaign of leadership ready to go into a campaign if he decides that he's going to try and take the opportunistic way out. And I think we have to come in very strong on proportional representation, because that's what we need. And we also have to say, if you want to call an election, we're going to call you out for the 2015 lies that you brought in, and we will go to the polls as you again if we end up with a minority.
Thank you, Mr. McQuail. Tanil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not running to babysit a Liberal government.
This is the CPAC live
in the next election. I tell people all the time that
we're just a little bit far back. We're just
really
behind a little
about
bit.
The next election. North Island Powell River is so ready for the next election, and we want to get going. And the excitement that we saw across the country in lots of tiny communities all over the place, people are ready. I think there's this misinterpretation that because the last election, took a big toll on us, we survived. We have our Magnificent Seven in there that are working harder than ever. And I think a lot of New Democrats are ready to hit the ground, hit the doors, and get going and really show what the NDP force is all about.
Avi Lewis.
Well, and as you've seen tonight, the New Democrats are the most polite and constructive of all the parties. You can see it among us tonight. And we will always work with whatever government we can to advance the interests of working class Canadians, to make life better. It is a country awash in wealth. And there is no reason why everyday struggles should be so intense for the 99% of Canadians trying to pay for groceries, trying to put food on the table. 1 in 4 Canadians skipping a meal in order to feed their kids. Mr. Carney understands, he's a bright guy, and he understands that we are at a turning point in human history. And the nation has an appetite for big things. We think he's going in the wrong direction. And we think that the NDP can provide a much healthier direction by doubling down on the ties that bind us, our independent sovereign economy, and the working class lives of Canadians.
Heather
NPDQ or a bit of both.
The role of New Democrats is to push the government until we become the government. And as a member of Parliament, I'm proud of some of the ways that we were able to get out of the last Parliament.
Kind of funny.
There are 6 million Canadians across this country that have access to a dentist that did not before because of New Democrats. But what I am seeing from Mark Carney right now is an unwillingness to work with the other parties. I need a prime minister that is defending our public universal healthcare system, and that is not what we are seeing. While Daniel Smith takes the biggest swing at healthcare since Tommy Douglas and the NDP put it in place, and Mark Carney does not defend the Canada Health Act, I can't work with that. When we are laying off public sector employees by the tens of thousands, that is not something I can support.
Okay, thank you. And Rob Ashton.
Work with Carney. That's funny because Carney's a bigger conservative, I think, than Harper or Mulroney ever were. And so when I'm the leader of the party and we regain all those seats, we're going to be taking out bill by bill. We're going to be standing up for what Canadians want, and that's jobs, housing, and affordability. Because Carney cut 40,000 jobs, 40,000 jobs out of our government. Jobs that people need to help get them into our system, to help work with us. He allows privatization to happen across the country. And he allows corporate business to steal away our jobs.
Okay, thank you for that. We're now going to move into the debate portion of this final segment. We do have other segments after, but was the confidence and supply agreement to blame for the party's losses in the last election? And did Canadians tie the NDP too closely to Justin Trudeau's Liberals? And Mr. McQuail, we'll start with you.
Well, that is one of the major problems of being a supportive an unpowerful supportive member in a
Engler made it to the debate
government, and we saw the same thing happen for the NDP in Ontario. We came up with a bunch of good ideas.
They called the police on
implemented our good ideas, and they got all the credit for it in the next election. And it wasn't until they dithered around for 3 years that then they were swept out of power, and the NDP came in 1990. So if you're going to go into an agreement, you have to be extremely clear of what you're agreeing to and what you're supporting and what you won't support.
Let me come to you, Ms. McPherson, because you were closely involved in the agreement. If voters did punish the party for that agreement, how are you the candidate for change?
So listen, for me, when I look at that agreement and the things that we were able to achieve for Canadians, I think that's very, very important. But the key piece that we need to fix here is our electoral system, and we do need electoral reform because we should be working together. We should be working for the benefit of Canadians. You know, all politicians should be going to Ottawa to get things done for Canadians.
In fairness to Rob Ashton,
my role as an opposition member,
there's a specific type
accountable,
of older Gen
every
X
day. You know, I'm able to stand
slash
in the House
boomer
of Commons, and I will be able
white
to stand in
man
the House of Commons
who has been
the day after
completely
this
one-shotted
leadership race
by
actually
AI.
Fight for Canadians.
That's why it's called boomer
That's what we
slop.
need to
Like
be
they,
doing.
I
You know,
don't
when
know,
we can
they're
get wins for
enamored by
Canadians,
it.
Let's work together.
They see
When we
none
can't,
of the
let's not.
issues.
But ultimately, it is a
I think it's
electoral
because they're
reform
like,
that we need to be looking at.
they're like,
It's a time for what
this
Nathan
is going to
Cohen
get
called
us
violent
the
agreement
like,
among us.
it's
And-
they're all
and
Star
Heather, I
Trek
have to say,
fans,
listening
is
to
my
your
theory.
defense of the supply-
Is they think they're going to get the materializer and the holodeck. That's why they love it. It makes them think of Star Trek.
And confidence agreement. I got shivers. It's why you're an incredible MP, and I really respect your leadership. I think what we had there was a failure of communication, a failure to communicate. We were staying in this, as I understand it, we stayed in the supply and confidence agreement so that we could actually get the dental care program implemented. Now, Jagmeet was in a very difficult position.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of
because he had
overlap.
to
I don't know if they
criticize
like
very unpopular
the
Trudeau
caucuses
government, but at the
meet.
same time, he was
And
still,
I don't know if the
and
NDP
caucus
has a
was still
specific
supporting on confidence
socialist
motions,
caucus
and
anymore.
Canadians got confused. Are you mad at them or are you supporting them? Because when push comes to shove, you support. And that's because we needed dental care for millions of Canadians to be implemented so the next government couldn't roll it back. But we never said that clearly to Canadians. We need to practice straight talk and clarity in our country and be transparent about why we're doing what we're doing. And I just want to say that in terms of proportional representation, which we all want, I've said that if we control the balance of power in a parliament, we will go in with one demand and change the electoral system so we have an actual functioning democracy in this country. And we have to let Canadians know that we're going to fight for that because 36% of the popular vote should not lead to absolute power.
Danielle
in Ottawa,
Smith just
and we all
called
know it.
a
Mr.
bunch
Ashton,
of
let me bring you in on
referendums
this.
for the
You
fall.
said the NDP got 3 big wins from the agreement: pharmacare, dental care, which everybody, and the anti-scab legislation as well. But the Liberals did take a lot of the credit on that. I think everybody on the stage agrees to that in the last election. As leader of the party, how would you approach the relationship with the Liberals differently?
We're going to demand better for the Canadian workers. We're going to demand better. We're going to be unapologetically loud when we actually make a deal and we get something that we need for Canadians. We're going to be screaming it from the rooftops, to be honest with you. Now, we're going to listen to what Canadians want us to fight us for. And that's jobs, that's housing, that's affordability, and yes, a new electoral system.
Binding citizens assembly?
This is
I
what we're gonna
don't.
be pushing
I would not know.
when I'm
I
leading
don't.
the NDP.
I feel like no.
We're going to be pushing for what Canadians
But
want
maybe
because we're going
I'm
to be
not.
listening
I'm
to
not
them.
a scholar.
We're going to be meeting with them, like Tennille said, where they're at. We're not going to roll over and allow the Carney
I think you'd
government
have to do legislation
or Polyev
proportional
sitting in the wings,
representation,
eating our cake and stealing our thunder.
Ms. McPherson, you wanted to get in a moment ago. My apologies.
No. But I'm happy to. I'm happy to talk. I mean, I agree with Rob when he talks about the idea of housing being something that we need to be making sure we're pushing the government on. You know, one of the things that bothered me most about the budget that I voted against in the fall is the fact that there was half the money promised for housing. You know, it is why I brought forward one of the very first platform planks was my housing platform. And it is because we're in the midst of a national housing emergency. And we see this government not taking the breadth of that problem seriously, you know, not dealing with it with the urgency that we see. And that's one example. But there are many examples where this government does not put working class Canadians at the forefront. It is all about corporate interests. It is not about making life better, making life more affordable, making life easier for Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
And Tennille, you just wanted to
Oh, this is incredible. So. Oh, I deleted it. I respect this. No, because Jeff threw a big fan, Mom's Basement fame. He made a post that was CanCon Big 3, but which he's since updated. Because it was before. Now it's these guys, but before it was Letterkenny, and I'm like, I love Letterkenny, but you got the wrong Tierney product. You gotta put Heat of Rivalry on there, and then he did. Yeah, that gets a retweet. Called collaboration.
Communication is absolutely key in all
Teamwork.
of this, and it's communication every single day, not just around election time. And it's on every platform you can imagine. It's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on Twitch, it's on YouTube, it's on all these different the platforms so that we can actually reach a diverse perspective of Canadians. We need to engage our student movement and help us with that. These folks are experts in these arenas, and we're not getting the information out there. I bet there's a whole ton of people that have no idea that Carney only funded the housing program half of
like
what
she's
it's
a
worth.
Scooby-Doo
There's so
villain.
many people that don't know that we have probably never actually contributed to our health care.
Let's see who's under that mask.
That we're supposed to as the federal government.
Javier Milei.
Big facts that folks don't know, and we're not getting that information out there to them.
It was Reza
And when we
Pahlavi
talk
the
about,
whole time.
Electoral reform. Can we please bring back the per vote subsidy?
Or wait,
That's
who is the guy we pretended was the president of Venezuela for like a hot minute?
A boat.
Juan Guaido, who's been Juan Guaido the whole time.
That'll help us get lifted out of this backward system where we have the same amount of votes, almost the same amount of votes as the Bloc Québécois, but we have 7 members and they have 22. We need to fix it.
Mr. McQuail, just short.
Well, the reason we have to rebuild the riding association connection to the party and strengthen our riding associations is based on 45 years of experience. You're never going to be able to communicate through the national media all that you want to communicate or have it come out really accurately. And so we are going to have to rebuild that base of the party, that foundation, and have really good communication so that we can tell our story to our members who can tell it to their neighbors.
Okay, thank you all. I have one final question, and this is a one-word answer, and I know you may disagree with a one-word answer, but I'm going to force it on you. Right now, your party holds 7 seats. We've been discussing that. So let's be clear. Are you running to rebuild this time, or are you running to be prime minister? One-word answer. Tanil, you're first.
Rebuild.
Tony.
Prime Minister.
Rob.
Rebuild.
Rebuild.
Be real. Rebuild, of course.
Okay.
More than one word.
Okay, we'll let him have more than one word. So this is our final section. Thank you for all doing that in one word. I thought there might be a little pushback on that, so I do appreciate that. Before we wrap up this evening, I do want to ask this
that's
last section.
Nirvana the band.
This is our final portion where we ask each person an individual question.
So very good.
And you know what?
I haven't actually seen it yet, but the clips I've seen are very funny.
Found it.
Very Canadiana. There's a movie in theaters right now. I don't know if there's you could probably see it where you are
papers
though.
Around.
Sure.
Tanil, I'm going to start with you on this one. These are for each contestant. They're tailored to you, either your experience, to your platform, to your campaign priorities, and you're going to have 1 minute to respond to each one. So Tanil, I am going to start with you. You've criticized, and we even heard tonight, the fundraising threshold to enter this race. Leadership of a national party requires raising significant resources. Why shouldn't members see that threshold as a test of readiness?
Yeah, I think I'm not deterred away from like a test of readiness as far as being able to fundraise. I think I'm actually quite a good fundraiser when we get down to it, especially in rural ridings. I land very well there because I understand that landscape. I don't necessarily view the landing at the $100,000 as a commitment to the kind of the democracy within our party. EDAs from across the country, we saw them do letter writing campaigns and offer to the party.
This is true. I should go back to Mother's Day to Jeff. They would be like, actually,
a reasonable
you gotta swap out.
Fee. And we
you gotta swap out Trailer Park Boys for Republic of Doyle.
And that was really what the membership was pushing. So when we look at our leadership race and running our leadership race, we need to lean into the people of the party, the membership of the party.
If we're being honest, the big three is heated rivalry, heartland, and Murdoch fucking mystery. The Brits love Murdoch mysteries, apparently.
Is
they
this
absolutely
machine,
eat
they
it
are
up.
the movement and use
Like,
those,
apparently
those recommendations that are coming
like,
from our people
Murdoch
to structure our
Mysteries
leadership
does
race in a
better
way
in,
that's
like,
really
the
respecting
UK,
what they're expecting to see from us.
Thanks,
syndication over there
Abby
than,
Lewis,
like,
you're next.
in
So
Canada,
here's your question. Your dad was a provincial leader. Your
It's just
grandfather
hilarious.
led the federal
like, not
party.
that it's doing
You
bad
describe
in
yourself
Canada,
as
but
an
it does fucking
outsider.
gangbusters.
In what sense?
Like the
well,
UK.
I think maybe I'm a throwback
The
to
English
the NDP
pensioners
of
absolutely
the CCF
love
NDP
Murdoch
of my grandpa's era. Think about what Tommy Douglas did with healthcare. It was the same thing. It was a giant idea that was outside the box.
In his NHL
From outside
debut,
the
which
box
was
for some
for
of
the
these,
Blues, he got a
for what
shutout
is
with
considered
25
a
saves, and
serious
that's when I
political
became,
idea by
hell
the very
yeah.
serious people who decide what's serious in this country. I'm advancing solutions as big as the crises we face. And that's what's required in this time. That's what Tommy did with healthcare. And we need to actually get outside of this very, very narrow window, which is what my objection to Carney's leadership is exactly that. He's a smart guy, and he's very popular in Canada right now because he has a diagnosis about where we are in history. We're at a turning point. But what he wants to do is make us into a petrostate that is a militarized petrostate, a junior arms dealer on the world stage. I have a very different vision for Canada, and that's what is outside of maybe the Ottawa bubble, but certainly not outside of our tradition as New Democrats.
God of War, Mark
Heather, you are next. You are senior member of former leader Jagmeet Singh's team and served as whip during the confidence and supply agreement. Ultimately, there was the party's worst federal results. So why should members see you as change rather than continuity?
I want to start by just saying how proud I am of what our caucus was able to achieve in the last parliament and the incredible members of parliament that made up our caucus. You know, with 25 members of parliament, we fundamentally changed the direction that our country took on many things. You know, I was the foreign affairs critic, and I am proud of the way that we fundamentally changed our party and the government on issues around Palestine, on Ukraine, on Sudan, on Iran. You know, there is a way that we need to push the government of the day until we are the government. And I can tell you, the work I have done in my riding, the work I have done across this country, the record I have of being able to win my seat in Alberta in a hard election proves that I can win, that I know how, and that is why I am the leader that the New Democrats need right now.
Thank you,
I
Heather.
hate the delay on how
We're
long
gonna
it
move over
takes
to
for
Rob
my
Ashton now.
soundboard to
You say
hit.
you want to put workers first. I have to mention your campaign did lean on AI to generate answers to questions at one point. I see that. How do you square that with your message about protecting workers from technological disruption?
For the last 10 years as president of the ILWU, I spent that time defending my members' jurisdiction against automation, against companies that want to bring in unilateral job cuts, by fighting against the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority and the Canadian government and alongside environmental groups, fighting against Roberts Bank Terminal 2, which is going to be, for all intents and purposes, a fully automated terminal, which will cost 90% of jobs of a conventional terminal, which will force other employers to increase their automation. I'm not against automation as long as automation works for the worker. Like the egg carton factory in Brantford, Ontario that I went to, where they brought in automation and robotics that actually improved workers from 100 jobs to 300 jobs over the time frame.
Okay, thank you. Tony McQuail, you are last in this section. You're entering the race without the same infrastructure or national profile. Now everybody does know who Mr. McQuail is. What is the realistic path for you to see winning, and what does success look like for you if it isn't victory?
Well, Hannah, I've run in a lot of elections. I've always run to win. I maybe haven't always won, but I won 3 school board elections in my own community. And what does success look like? It looks like helping people understand the issues and the needs from a perspective that maybe they aren't already hearing. So that's one success. I always, when I get into an election, have a tiered series of what does success look like and a whole stair steps. You ask the question, what am I running for? I want to be Prime Minister because I want to work with these people on the ideas they have to move this country forward. And, you know, when I first sent out my email, most of my friends said, are you crazy? But, you know, your ideas give us hope. And I'm feeling pretty despairing. And I had thought I had no idea to get to this stage, but because of the wonderful support and the fact that some of these ideas resonate across Canada, we're here now. Let's go forward with some hope.
Okay, thank you all for that. That was our final section. Fist bump onto the right side there if you didn't see that. Before we wrap this evening, of course, we're going to hear one more time from each of our contestants. I think everybody just took a sigh of relief right now. I think I felt it up here. So we're going to hear 45 seconds from each of you. And actually, Tony, you're first again. Okay. 45 seconds to you.
Okay. Well, my friends, if we are to meet the current challenges as a party, a country, and a people, we need bold change. We need the skills and talents of all these candidates working to rebuild our movement and share our vision with Canadians. This is a lot to ask of one person. Canadian Quakers have gone from having a single clerk to having a clerk's table with a team approach to leadership. And I would suggest, as part of redesigning how we do things, perhaps it's time to have a leaders' table to share the work and the wisdom. We need a shared vision that resonates with Canadians. I hope that our holistic goal for Canada could be that vision and that it could be worked on by the team that you have before you. Let's have a leaders' table.
Tony McQuail, thank you kindly for those final thoughts. Tenille Johnston, you're next.
Yeah, as an Indigenous woman, as a social worker, I bring a different perspective to this race, and I understand the urgency for change. I've witnessed day in, day out how the capitalist system consistently and deliberately fails our communities. The leadership race is about change. It's about the next chapter of the NDP, and one that isn't afraid to lead fully and boldly with its values. I'm not here for a promotion. I'm here to drive change. I'd love for you to join me in whatever platform works for you, whether it's email, Facebook, Mastodon, you name it, come join me. Tonight, I'm asking you to stand with me and lend me, Tenille Johnston, your first choice vote, and let's get to work.
Tenille, thank you kindly. Rob Ashton, you're next.
We need to rebuild the NDP. We need to rebuild the trust that working class people may have lost in us.
I guess we're
we have to bring voters back.
About 5 minutes behind.
How? By bold solutions that impact their daily lives. By taxing the rich, cutting taxes on the working class, rebuilding industries, investing in industries, but investing in job creation. By building homes that Canadians can afford with Canadian workers and Canadian materials. And that's why I'm running, to take our power back, to bring the NDP back to its roots and offer real hope.
Thank you, Rob.
Because I'm the leader that listens. I'm the leader that's going to push our membership's decisions. And I'm the leader that will deliver.
You should have stopped on that one. You should have stopped on that. You should. It was right. That was the line. You should have just ended it. You should have ended it. That was the power line.
You're next.
Despite a few dim sparks that flew tonight,
you should have just left it on that line.
New Democrats.
That was a good line to end it on.
But here's why our campaign is different. You're not just voting for me. You're voting for a whole new approach, a movement that we are building together. To stop the ongoing genocide in Gaza now, for public options, a wealth tax, a Canadian Green New Deal. When Tommy Douglas and the NDP fought for Medicare, we heard all the same things. It's too radical. We won't be taken seriously. It can't be done. But Tommy knew it was what a supermajority of Canadians wanted, the kind of Canada we deserve. This is how we rebuild now. This is how we start winning. And this is how we transform the country for the many, not the money.
See, I waited a second so I didn't interrupt you. Thank you, Abby Lewis. I learned from Rob Ashton. Heather McPherson.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for the discussion this evening. You know, New Democrats fight for what matters. It's because of the NDP that we have public health care, that we have pensions, that we have enshrined workers' rights, that we have a strong public service. You know, so many of the things that define us as Canadians, things that separate us from the United States, are there because of New Democrats. We have a responsibility to live up to that. and win more seats so that we can do even more for people. I have a plan, I have a record, and I have the energy to hold this government accountable until we are government. I'm not getting ready to do this work. I am already doing it. And with your support, I know we can win more seats. We can do even more for Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Thank you to all of the candidates on this stage. I truly appreciate you allowing me to moderate the debate. Before we sign off, though, I want to acknowledge something that is truly important. Now, in these debates, I want to thank each of you, the contestants, for putting yourself out there, putting forward your vision in a political arena. Running for leadership is not easy. I can't imagine being on your side of the podium. It requires courage, it requires conviction, and a willingness to stand up for what you believe in, knowing that you're going to be tested here as well. These are the 5 candidates who will appear on the leadership ballot to be the next leader of the New Democratic Party. So thank you all for putting your name forward. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes as well. There are teams here, there are teams behind there that put this all together. So thank you kindly for doing that. It's very important for a good public discourse. Voting opens on March 9th. NDP members can vote online, by telephone, or by mail if they have requested that option. A new leader will be announced on March 29th in Winnipeg. One of these 5 here will become the new leader of the New Democrat Party. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Talk we didn't. A bit tricky to do in a leadership debate.
Beginning with you, Mel.
Got some punditry
what stood out for you tonight in the debate?
A bit more contrast, not necessarily naming the contrast out directly, but at least a little bit more contrast. I know it's always a little bit tricky to do in a leadership debate and compare it to like a debate with your actual opponents later down the line. But it is actually really important to tell people and to paint the choices clear to people. So I was happy to see some of that contrast tonight. I was looking for 2 things tonight. I was looking, one, what is your message to members? Because obviously that's who you need to vote for you. But I was also looking for 2, what's your message to Canadians? Because whoever the leader is, people are paying attention to you now. So how are you starting to use this platform to go talk to those people that will need to vote for you in the lead up or in the next election? I feel like we saw a lot of the membership talk. We didn't necessarily see a lot of the what comes next and how people would position themselves as leaders with folks who don't have an NDP membership. But again, there's a month left, so maybe we'll see that in the weeks to come.
Matthew?
Well, I think the good thing is that the focus was on workers and on, the issues that I think are more core to how Canadians are feeling right now. Less focus on some of the broader existential issues. We were willing to address tensions with Donald Trump, for example, how Canada can defend itself vis-a-vis the tensions with the U.S. So I think that was positive. I think on the downside is, unlike Mel, I think there was not enough contrast, although maybe you would agree to some extent.
A little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit for sure, but not enough. I think it's okay to be a bit more.
It was called dim sparks.
Right, exactly. And I mean, certainly they didn't fly very high, the sparks, and I think that it's okay to name the differences, right, and to create that contrast. I think that's also how you generate excitement. And I think the other issue is lack of specifics, right? Everyone's kind of nailed the boilerplate language, but I don't think that that's enough. You can keep saying workers, 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 members, 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 EDAs, EDAs, EDAs over and over, but it's not like saying Bloody Mary in front of the mirror. Like nothing's going to appear if you keep repeating it, right? So I do think that there's a little bit of that was missing.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. It was lack courage to get to the third one for the Bloody Mary.
Fair enough.
Eric.
I thought it was interesting to see the contrast between the 3 major candidates in terms of their approach. Not so much that they had extremely different positions, but I think we sensed primarily from Heather McPherson a bit more the sense of urgency that the party has a lot to work to do to get back into relevancy that I didn't necessarily hear as much from the other candidates. And she really emphasized how the NDP federally needs to be in a little bit of lockstep with the provincial parties, which have a lot more success. They have a lot more organization. They've won elections. You can look at, the 4 Western parties in particular, all very strong. So you heard a lot of that message from her, which I think is interesting because it is sort of a key plank for the NDP going forward. But Rob Ashton really focusing on the loss of the working class voters that the Conservatives took from them, which is an approach that you're not seeing as much from Avi Lewis, which is much more the progressive if you laid out a map of where each of these candidates are looking at winning seats, Ashton is trying to pick up the seats that they lost to the Conservatives. Lewis is trying to gain some of the urban seats that they lost to the Liberals in 2015, and McPherson is saying, let's lean a little bit on our partners that have had so much success provincially. So that small contrast, I think, was pretty notable.
Mathieu, tu as évoqué cette idée qu'il y a un diagnostic clair en ce qui concerne l'importance d'aller regagner le vote des travailleurs, par exemple. Mais jusqu'ici, depuis les dernières élections, le NPD, je pense qu'on peut le dire, a été plus ou moins évincé de la conversation. Est-ce que vous avez entendu quoi que ce soit ce soir qui vous donne l'impression qu'il peut trouver une façon de vraiment s'y réinsérer?
Je ne sais pas si ça a été motivé en réponse aux questions qui ont été posées par Hannah quand elle modérait le débat, mais je dirais que au moins on a parlé de Donald Trump. On a parlé de qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour protéger l'économie canadienne et comment ça peut impacter les travailleurs, la perte d'emploi, par exemple, la menace de perte d'emploi, par exemple. Donc, je pense qu'à ce niveau-là, les autres débats, on parlait, par exemple, puis écoutez, je ne veux pas m'avancer dans les eaux controversées, mais je pense qu'il y a eu juste 2 mentions à la fin, par exemple, du conflit au Gaza, avec Israël. Oui, à Gaza, pardon. Et donc, je pense le fait de se rendre jusqu'à la fin du débat avant d'évoquer des enjeux à l'étranger qui ne touchent pas nécessairement le quotidien des gens, c'était un changement avec le débat à Montréal, par exemple, puis même certains discours que tiennent les candidats dans leurs interventions auprès des membres de jour en jour. Donc, le fait de parler de les enjeux qui préoccupent grandement la population, c'est positif. La façon dont on a parlé, c'est peut-être pas encore suffisant, mais au moins le fait qu'on s'attaque de front.
So while this was while this was happening, Yves Engler was outside causing tension. This is like, it just keeps going for like, oh, they took him down. Sorry, I skipped too far. Why did I skip? Oh, they're going for the newspaper.
No Democracy Party! No Democracy Party! No Democracy Party! NDP!
You gotta love the NDP. Englers and his supporters are chanting, "No Democracy Party." Police have arrived and are trying to de-escalate with mixed success so far. Officials are making the case that they've accomplished garnering attention and it's time to leave, yet they have yet to. There isn't even a dozen of us. Less than a dozen. Protest inside the building has ceased. The small group has been escorted outside. Back in the room, the debate is continued. It's so funny. What else we got? Oh, yeah. Goddamn, the Board of Peace. It's absolutely so embarrassing that Carney was not here for this. Like, it really would have improved Canada's standing on the world if we were included in this.
I think we have to smile. A lot of good things.
What song is this?
Does everybody like the music? Yeah, it's a perfect song. It's good music.
Does not steal your song.
Should YMCA.
YMCA, yes.
Good. Okay.
What song is that?
Right.
Is this November Rain? No fun. Oh God. He is just an incredible he's an incredible man. Okay, I've got a bunch of good bookmarks from today. Just an incredible. This is him leaving the police station. And in fact, I actually have video of Andrew Mountbatten leaving the Prince. We had secret left-hand stew cameras inside the vehicle.
Here, hold up. Where's Victoria?
Shout out David Weigel, who made this joke first, because it's like a sign. He just did the photo of his face, and I heard the music in my head. Some of the best face acting, I think, in probably top 10, if not top 5. Just it's top 10 face acting. Incredible. He's just all lower jaw shit. It's great. Oh, yeah, we've got, and then the what is going, come on, what is, this is, you want to talk about diabolical, of Diablo, of the devil. All right, I get it.
And I'll hunt you down with dogs.
I need a palate cleanser.
I'll get some.
Where?
With dogs.
And I'll hunt you down with dogs.
Get up, sir. Get up. Get up, sir, Duncan. Get up, sir. Get up.
Yes.
Oh, mate, I can't eat hard salt beef. Just eat lovely food and grapes.
Shut up.
So wholesome.
Rob me, and I'll hunt you down.
With dogs. Also, this meant
Dumplings.
Yep.
And the shrimp sume to start.
Yep.
And then for the mains, please, can we have Chinese wok noodles?
Chinese wok noodles.
Is that big enough for 4 people?
Which one? The one noodle?
It's a man who knows what he's
Chinese
doing.
Wok noodles.
Good for 1 person or 2 person.
So, right, we'll have 2 of them, please.
Yes.
Can we have 2 of the hoisin honey glazed duck?
Yes.
Can we have 2 of the wok fried crispy beef?
Which one?
Wok fried crispy beef. Can we have, please, 2 special fried rice?
So by the way, the duck, the honey glazed duck, it's come with the steam rice already. This one.
Right, comes with we'll have 1 special fried rice as well, please. Thank you for telling us that. Can we have sweet and sour chicken?
Sweet and sour chicken, yes. Please.
Is that big for 2 people?
I think it's enough already, this one, and you can order more if not.
Right, so we'll have 1 sweet and sour chicken, thank you. Anything else you want?
Would you like to try the bow bun? We have some duck and beef.
No, I'm alright on
What's
the
that
bow
noise?
buns. We've got the beef. Do you want bow buns? Right, we'll try.
Yeah, we have duck bow bun.
We'll have duck bow
So
buns.
the duck bow bun in one order is 2 pieces.
We'll have 2 lots then, so we've got 4.
4, yeah.
Yeah, please, thank you.
I'll make it started.
Yeah, thank you. He's going to make that as a start.
Also, this is hilarious. The 10,000 steps a day is because the Japanese pedometer company thought the character 10,000 looks like a person walking. I'm Min Lee, professor of epidemiology at Harvard University T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and the lead author of a new study published this week in the Journal of the American Medical Association, began looking into the step rule because she was curious about where it came from. It turns out the original basis of the 10,000 step guideline was really a marketing strategy, she explains. In 1965, a Japanese company was selling pedometers, and they gave it a name that, in Japanese, means the 10,000 step meter. Based on conversations had with Japanese researchers, Lee believes that the name was chosen for the product because the character for 10,000 looks sort of like a man walking. As far as she knows, the actual health merits of that number have never been validated by research. Absolutely incredible. So funny. Where was the other one I wanted to watch was if I could find the Danielle Smith video. Apparently that was only about 13 minutes. Is it on YouTube?
À ce qui préoccupe les gens.
We'll go to Danielle Smith.
Good evening, my fellow Albertans. With the new budget approaching and a shifting geopolitical landscape, I wanted to take some time to speak with you about
I know
how
Mark
the provincial
Slapinski is
government
losing
plans
his mind
to
right now.
navigate these challenges while ensuring Alberta continues to prosper. I'd like to start with the good news. The Alberta economy is once again booming. We are leading the entire country in virtually every economic category, from job growth to investment to GDP to wages. The Energy Agreement, or MOU, signed with Ottawa last year, has eliminated both the destructive oil and gas production cap and the net zero power regulations. These 2 victories alone have had an immediate supercharging effect on our economy. In just the last few weeks, we have had tens of billions in new projects announced, including several new AI data centers, the expansion of TMX and other pipelines headed west and south, and a final investment decision by Dow Chemicals on their multi-billion-dollar plastics facility. And that's just the start. In the coming year, we expect tens of billions in data center and power generation announcements, oil production facility expansions, and approval from the federal government for a 1 million barrel a day pipeline to our west coast bound for Asian markets. These
It's booming, Paula. Did you hear the lady?
Jobs for Albertans, and will prime the pump, so to speak, for more investments in all sectors of the economy, from agriculture to tech to tourism to aviation and everything in between. It's an exciting time for our province. However, we have a very serious growth and budget challenge that must be addressed. In the year I became premier, the price of oil averaged $90 a barrel US. These strong oil prices saw our budget enjoy royalty revenue of over $25 billion and a surplus of around $12 billion, which we used to build up the Canadian accent and pay down provincial debt. Since that time, however, the price of oil has fallen by over $30 a barrel to around $60. Each $1 drop in the price of oil means roughly $750 million less in oil royalties for the province. The result? What had been a $12 billion surplus in 2023 at $90 oil has turned into a large budget deficit at $60 oil. This is not the first crash in oil prices our province has faced, nor will it be the last. What is unique about the current oil price crash versus others in the past is that our economy today is more diversified, resilient, and still growing despite the drop in oil price. To put it bluntly, people across the country and around the world continue to want to move to our province in very large numbers to pursue job opportunities and prosperity. In the past, Canada's responsible immigration policies, such as those under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, constrained international immigration to manageable levels in Alberta so that our province could keep up with the growth of our economy and population. It also ensured that new immigrants primarily arrived here with highly valuable skills, a good job, and started contributing income taxes the moment they arrived. That is the story of the vast majority of our amazing...
Post-debate scrums. Sorry, Danielle Smith. You'll still be there.
The U.S. isn't a reliable defense partner. It once was.
Yes. What I've said is that I understand.
Service and
the
Canadian Shield.
CBC Radio-Canada.
French people in Quebec is different. It's not able to notice.
And I won't allow for further questions or follow-up. I will ask that outlets limit themselves to one question and one follow-up. Merci tout le monde. On a 10 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. We have 10 minutes per candidate. So one question and one follow-up per journalists.
So one question, one follow-up question, and over after 10 minutes. Hi, I'm with Radio-Canada, so...
CBC Radio-Canada.
Oui, c'était fantastique. C'est un débat entre néo-démocrates. Alors,
Unfortunately, Mr. Lewis's voice is covered by another interpreter from somewhere else. He's inaudible.
The size of that vision, but I think it was good. Concerning the relationship with Mr. Trump, what would you do differently than what the other candidates proposed?
Sur sujet de Trump et comment faire un Canadian Shield
how to create a Canadian shield to Trump-proof our economy, that is a question of public options, right? The role of the government of creating businesses, generating public sector options for groceries, for housing, and look for the others look for smaller solutions. And I think we must have the courage right now and have solutions that are as big as the crises which we face.
Name themselves and their outlet. Thank you. Okay. David Thurton, CBC News. Ms. Lewis, I'm going to ask you to respond to a story that is out on the interwebs about
the interwebs,
your previous involvement, and I believe it was the LEAP organization, and allegations of union busting. What's your response to that? The allegations are essentially that you somehow maybe indirectly or directly stood in the way of employees at this LEAP group forming a union.
David, I've been around federal politics maybe even a little longer than you have. Is that possible? I know federal politics is a contact sport, but this is an ugly low blow. It's absurd, and there's zero truth to it. We had an organization called The Leap, and when the workers, just before the pandemic, shut everything down, said that they wanted to unionize, we were thrilled. And they chose to unionize with CUPE, and it's widely available. The press release that CUPE and the LEAP organization put out together celebrating the unionization of our workers is still easily available for everyone. So it's a hit piece. It's unfortunate, but there's no substance to it whatsoever. Piece.
Okay, I want to ask you about basically the trade deal that Canada has with U.S. and Mexico, the new NAFTA, CUSMA, whatever you want to call it. Is that something that you are interested in maintaining? Or do you think that Canada needs to get out of it?
I'm interested in protecting the auto industry. I'm interested in protecting unionized Canadian jobs. I don't think CUSMA really did that. It was a deal that Trump signed off on when he used to think trade deals were a good idea. Look, we're the party that fought the free trade agenda in the 80s and the 90s because we argued correctly then that we shouldn't integrate our economy with the United States to such a deep extent. And now that there is a character like Trump running the United States, we see how vulnerable we've become. The solution is not a single trade deal or a negotiation, which Trump doesn't have the attention span to complete anyway. It's to build Canadian industries, new industries, a 21st century electro-state, renewable energy, a public option for groceries, investing in the public sphere. We have all of our proposals on our campaign that will Trump-proof the economy, and we need to get serious about using the vast resources of this country, not to invest in weapons and war, but to make Canadians safe, thriving, and healthy right here with our public healthcare system and services and a Canadian economy made in Canada.
But would you stay in a deal with a nation that is effectively, you would agree, is a fascist state?
No. But it's an academic question because these negotiations don't go anywhere because we're not negotiating with a reasonable partner.
Hi, Joe Sadowski with City News Vancouver.
You have to go back because it's like, just so I understand what he said specifically, what he was saying no to there.
Look, we're the party that fought the free trade agenda in the 80s and the 90s because we argued correctly then that we shouldn't integrate our economy with the United States to such a deep extent. And now that there is a character like Trump running the United States, we see how vulnerable we've become. The solution is not a single trade deal or a negotiation, which Trump doesn't have the attention span to complete anyway. It's to build Canadian industries, new industries, a 21st century electro state, renewable energy, a public option for groceries, investing in the public sphere. We have all of our proposals on our campaign that will Trump-proof the economy, and we need to get serious about using the vast resources of this country, not to invest in weapons and war, but to make Canadians safe, thriving, and healthy right here with our public healthcare system and services and a Canadian economy made in Canada.
But would you stay in a deal with a nation that is effectively, you would agree, is a fascist state?
No. But it's an academic question because these negotiations don't go anywhere.
Okay, so wait.
A nation that is effectively, you would agree, is a fascist state.
Because there was, I was like, is he saying
deal
that
with
he doesn't
Canadian
believe...
economy made in Canada?
But would you stay in a deal with a nation that is
would you
effectively,
stay in a deal
you would
with...
agree, is a fascist state?
I think that's what he's
no.
saying no to. He wouldn't stay in a deal
it's an academic
with Trump.
It's an academic question because
I think
these
it's what he's saying, I
negotiations
guess.
don't go anywhere because we're not negotiating with a reasonable partner.
Hi, Joe Sadowski with City News Vancouver.
Just on what I know about Avi, I would have been surprised if Avi was
there's
being
not
like
really a clear
so forceful and be like,
plan,
no, I don't
direction
think Trump
to
is a
rebuild
fascist. I'm like,
the-
I would
the
have thought you
NDP
did.
Party from what I've heard this evening. So just how can you instill that confidence into Canadians that voting for NDP
But I don't
in the
think
next
that's the thing
election
he's
isn't a
saying no
waste of a
to.
vote?
Maybe we were at different debates. I think there's a really clear plan, and if you look on all the candidates' websites, we've all put it forward. Our plan is to keep doing what we've been doing. We've been using a distributed organizing approach on our campaign. We've raised almost as much money on our campaign as all the other campaigns combined. We have signed up new members in 338 out of 343 ridings, and we have giant events packed with hundreds of people across the country. So something about our offer is resonating, and it is both that we are proposing solutions as big as the crises we face, like a public option for groceries, like a Canadian Green New Deal, and we are trusting local chapters to do the organizing using the techniques, whether it's door knocking or phone calling or coffee parties or whatever is like the specific technique, and to choose the messages that work in their communities. It's a big country with a lot of different realities, and we are already rebuilding the party by building the ground game for the next election right now. And the momentum we have is going to continue as soon as this leadership race is over.
Thanks.
And I'll just take a moment to remind you that the camera is here. The mic is next to it.
You guys want me to?
I thought that was also great.
Okay.
Rachel Aiello, CTV News.
Hi, Rachel.
How are you?
Great.
Good. It really feels like the conversation around this campaign has been the question for party members being, are we a party of ideas or are we a party that can get elected and get things done? Now, if I'm reading between the lines there, the insinuation is you're the guy with ideas and there's another candidate pitching herself as the person who has a record of getting elected. What do you make of that kind of framing of this leadership race?
It's a completely false dichotomy. Ideas are how we win. Proposing ideas that would actually solve the crises, the everyday emergency of just trying to get by, the cost of living emergency for Canadians requires big solutions. It's not enough to beg 5 grocery giants that dominate the industry, that price fix and collude and profit gouge to please lower the price a little bit. We actually need a public option to discipline these monopolies, whether it's cell phones, whether it's internet, whether it's groceries, and the public role in housing. We actually need big solutions. Prime Minister Carney understands that we're at a turning point as a country and we need nation-building large projects. We just believe that he's pursuing the wrong ones. Those big ideas that we've been putting forth in our campaign are precisely how we win. And
Wait. This is... You want to see how the CBC is visualizing the Epstein files? The Canadian describing anything. So imagine a CN tower.
Put 3 million pages on top of each other, it would be more than half the CN Tower. That's 300 meters.
Why did they give the CN Tower... Sorry.
The other 500,000 pages.
Why did they give the Epstein files coverage to their movie critic? What are you doing, CB? And they were doing all this during the hockey? Like, I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat, but I could feel it forming as I watched. I'm like, why are you doing it now? Why is this who you've assigned to do the story?
The CN Tower. That's 300 meters.
And why is this what you're...
Because you're going to add to that stack the other 500,000 pages the DOJ has already released, and then...
That's so funny. That's incredible.
The gigantic momentum, the hundreds of people that we've had at events, the fundraising we've had, smashing all previous NDP leadership fundraising records, and signing up new members in 338 of 300.
How many extra large double doubles, stacked top to bottom?
143 ridings. That's showing that these ideas are resonating, and our momentum is proof that ideas and solutions are how we win.
Kilograms. How many Timbits is the total weight?
The left is wide open. Mark Carney is governing more to the center. What do you make of the criticisms that what you're proposing is too far left and will drive the NDP off a cliff instead of actually capturing that open field?
Very, very familiar criticisms from a lack of political imagination. When Tommy Douglas put forward Medicare, everybody said exactly the same thing. Oh, too radical, not going to be taken seriously, can't be done. But he knew that a supermajority of Canadians needed public health care, wanted to live in a country that treated people with that kind of dignity. We won it. It was incredibly successful. It was adopted nationally, and it has stood the test of time. And that's exactly why we need ideas that are ambitious and bold and will actually solve the everyday crisis that Canadians are facing. This is how we win.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks so much for taking my question. I'm a reporter from the Canadian Press, and I'm asking the question on behalf of my colleague, David Baxter.
Oh!
We noticed that you have talked about reducing military spending on your social media account on Twitter. And how will you protect Canadian sovereignty? To cut military spending, especially U.S. isn't a reliable defense partner it once was.
Yes, what I've said is that I understand that Canadians are afraid. Our biggest ally has turned on us. We're under threat of annexation, and we need to make our country safe. The question is how we do it. Look, at the end of the Harper era, we were spending $20 billion a year on the military. This past fiscal year, it was $40 billion. Carney now wants it to be $60 billion. And then he wants to double it and double it again to 5% of our GDP. We do not get safer when 3/4 of our military spending already goes to U.S. arms companies. Spending more money in that stream is not making us safer from the United States. What makes us safer is having an independent economy that has economic sovereignty, where we take care of people who can't put food on the table, where we deal with the crisis of housing, where we bring back our healthcare system from privatization and the threats and the reality of privatization that already exists, and make Canada a country that Donald Trump never wants to visit. In other words, a Canada where people take care of each other.
Thank you.
Very short question.
Very short. So I'm Sean Foss with the CBC, and I'm not asking on behalf of myself. I'm asking on behalf of future voters.
Sure.
My kid in particular, who is 17 years old, and he has the question that is, how do you feel about Alexandre Bouleri's MP leaving the NDP to run for Quebec Solidaire?
Have a good night, Seth.
Being as they're the only current NDP MP within Quebec. That's the first part of the short question.
He's invoking Mamdani as much as Tommy Douglas at this point.
Alexandre carried the torch for the NDP in Quebec. He's been doing that for 15 years.
And all alone for the past 5 years, he's an absolute hero. His decision hasn't been confirmed, and we do hope that he's going to make the right choice. But as soon as I heard the news yesterday, I called him immediately to say, stay with us. Anyway, we'll see what happens.
Et la deuxième partie de ma question, vous avez répondu. How do you think that your fluency in French aids in the unity, in bringing unity to Anglo and English within Canada?
Oui, c'est nécessaire.
À l'intérieur du Canada.
Il y a 2 langues officielles.
It's important. There are 2 official languages in Canada, and a federal leader has to be able to speak French. I'm working hard every day to improve my French.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
C'était donc le candidat Avi Lewis qui...
That was candidate Avi Lewis responding to journalists' questions. Each of the 5 candidates will have a chance to engage in a 10-minute scrum. The next candidate up will be Rob Ashton. And apparently he is now walking to the microphone, so we'll be hearing him.
Évidemment, Mr. Lewis a beaucoup parlé.
Mr. Lewis talked a lot about how important it was to rebuild the party. It is, rather, to rebuild the party. He also talked about this idea, the false dichotomy, that the party must be either a party of ideas or a party that can aspire to gain more seats. How did tonight's debate and the leadership race, in your view, actually represent a choice between staying faithful to principles no matter what or gaining more seats? I think they can remain faithful to their values and try to win. I'm a New Democrat because I believe that it's the party that's going to help ordinary people, that does help ordinary people, takes care of our children, our parents. The party that when things don't go well, looks after people. That's why I'm an NDP supporter and voter. So, yes, we can keep our values, but we can still talk to people in a way they'll understand. All too often, the problem is that when we talk about...
And so I continue down that path.
Problem is that...
Sorry, Melanie, we just keep cutting Melanie off and skipping through everything she has to say. I feel bad.
Close.
Bob Ashton answers questions post the NDP leadership debate.
News. Mr. Ashton, noticed that you probably, more than other candidates, took the strategy of disagree.
Actually had a debate.
It's interesting to see. Why did you take that strategy? And do you think you did a good job differentiating yourself from, I guess maybe probably your main opponent, Avi Lewis?
Earlier on in the campaign, I put out a video describing differences in campaign styles. And so I continued down that path, showing that what the distinct types of leadership that are on the stage. One of unity with the provincial parties, the territorial parties, having the ability to communicate with those parties as well as the leader of the federal party. And in the past, one candidate wasn't able to do that, wasn't able to communicate with a provincial party when the LEAP manifesto was put on the table at a federal party convention. And that hurt Premier Notley. It hurt Premier Notley to the point where she spent the rest of her term defending her government.
Okay. And so maybe I'll move on to another question. It's about some reporting that we saw concerning Avi Lewis and allegations that he did not allow for employees at one of the organizations that came out of the LEAP manifesto, LEAP, to form a union. What do you make of those allegations? Are they concerning to you? What's your view on that?
after the debate, Avi and I took a private moment.
Ooh.
And I asked him if we could have a meeting so that he could explain that to me. As a union leader, any type of union busting, I'm not saying it was, but any type of union busting is quite honestly bullshit. We have to be a party that defends workers, that defends unions, and does everything in our power to fight corporations that bust unions.
Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada. I'll maybe ask English. Are you satisfied with your performance in the debate tonight? And specifically, do you feel like your French has improved enough since Montreal to be the leader of the NDP?
I think I did a great job. I think I did a good job expressing the points of view that I've been talking about my entire campaign. Is my French good enough at this moment in time? It's not. And I understand that, and I acknowledge and accept that. But what I'm learning about the French culture and the team that I've got surrounding me right now, the Francophone part of my team, has given me the ability to understand, like I talked about the quiet revolution. There's the other part, is the matchstick workers back in the early 1900s that fought for pay equity and gender equality and safety. And these sisters did something that was before its time. And this happened in Quebec. And so learning and understanding the culture for me is of the utmost importance, as well as learning the language. And I'm going to continue to learn the language.
Speaking of Quebec, I'll ask you about Alexandre Boulris. What do you make about rumors of him potentially going into provincial politics, and have you spoken to him about this?
I have not spoken with Alexander about the rumors about him going into provincial politics. But we need allies. We need allies in Quebec. And if Alexander does choose to go and get into provincial politics, it'll be quite a blow to the federal NDP. But I wish him all the best. And I know it'll give us a good opportunity to be able to work with Alexander provincially. And everything will work out for the better in the end.
You wouldn't try to convince him to stay?
Oh, of course, because he's a huge part of our caucus and a part of our party. But at the end of the day, it's his decision as an individual. And yeah, I'll try to convince him if we ever talk about it, but he's his own individual, and I'll support his decision.
Mr. Ashton, I'm a reporter from the Canadian Press. Is it okay to get your thoughts on Mr. Levi's response to the Leap Manifesto attack during the debate? Was the membership wrong in adopting it? Thank you.
The membership of the NDP is never wrong, because the membership, when they're given all the information, are right. Because it's the membership's will and the membership's drive that guides our
Ashton's
party.
answer to the first question?
The part that I disagree with is not communicating with the provincial NDP, the Alberta NDP, before bringing it forward, before dropping it on the table in Alberta. Because that's when the sitting NDP government had to fight and defend themselves, something that they didn't do. That's something the federal government did, or the federal NDP did. And so this is where I say the federal NDP has to work in partnership with our provincial sections and our territorial sections, because we can't be blindsiding each other with issues.
Anyone want a second?
I'll ask you another question.
Sure.
Who do you think is your biggest opponent in this race?
My biggest opponent? I don't think we're opponents, because every one of us
He's dodging it. Nice dodge.
Running to be the leader of this great party.
Good dodge.
An opponents is the wrong word.
1 second.
Because we're
all right. Who's your biggest competitor?
Right for the party. And I think we all have a shot at this. I do believe I'll be victorious on March 29th to be able to be the voice of new Democratic members. But I don't think we're opponents. I think we're in it to do better for the party.
You don't see that there is a front runner or someone you need to be at this point? You think it's all even?
I think the media portrays myself, Heather, and Avi as the three front runners. But Tennille and Tony have a lot of great ideas. And I think if they got half the media that the three of us have gotten over the last few months, I think they'd be right in the race as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And there you have it, Rob Ashton. That was Rob Ashton, one of 5 people trying to secure the leadership of the NDP in a convention that will take place in Winnipeg in late March. Listen, we're now waiting for the next news conference to begin. I'll bring in our guests once again. I'm going to begin with you, Matthew, this time around, because a couple things stood out there, one of which is the French language, which I think we can apply to all the candidates, so let's get back to that in a moment. But specifically in this Q&A, the LEAP manifesto, which was championed by Avi Lewis at the same time that Rachel Notley was running the Alberta government as an NDP premier. Talk to us about the challenge of that, because in many ways that seems to be what Heather McPherson was trying to get to as well, the need to cooperate with Western NDPers who've done well. I apologize. I'm going to get back to you again. Let's now go to Tony McQuail. He's now taken to the microphone. His turn to answer questions in New Westminster, British Columbia.
Okay, so just Tony, to remind you, it'll be 10 minutes. The questions are here, but the camera is filming you from here, so you may want to address that.
Okay.
And I'll open the floor to you, David.
Hi, Mr. McQuail.
Hi, David.
David Thurton from CBC.
Yep.
We've been speaking throughout the race. Early on, you portrayed yourself as an underdog and pretty blunt, saying that you're not going to win. Do you still feel that way?
David, I've been involved in politics for 45 years.
Oh, yeah.
I went into the 1990 Ontario
Farmer
provincial
McPhail.
election so depressed, so sense of feeling that we weren't going to get anywhere. The Ontario NDP came out of that, the government of Ontario with a majority. Politics is an interesting thing, and we're at a really very difficult and dangerous time as a country, as a nation, and in the world, environmentally and in terms of the socio-political situation that we see developing with the United States and other major powers. And if people want the kind of change that I'm talking about, and people, particularly in the NDP, want the kind of change I'm talking about, I could come out of this the leader. I don't expect to, but I have ideas and plans that if I do, I'm going to be working on getting those other 4 candidates to work with me and form a team that can take the message out across the country and build the kind of green, progressive coalition I believe we need to both deal with the problems we've got with the environment, but also the problems we've got in terms of our relationship with our neighbors to the south and how we build a strong coalition across that border with progressive people to deal with the insanity of the person they've got running their country at the moment.
Speaking about that country, you seem to be saying in the debate that we need to get out of the trade agreement we have with the U.S. and Mexico. Or do you mind just clarifying?
Well, we either need to hold them to it.
You're going to want to hear from McPherson,
or
too.
we need to recognize that
Surprised
they're
they
going
didn't
to
go to
get out of it
McPherson.
on. You know, we need strategies that leave us stronger if it collapses, and not ones that just leave us desperate. Because trade and growth have been held out as the answer to our problems. And what we've seen is, in terms of society, growth in inequity, and in terms of growth in terms of environmental damage. So we need a new set of strategies. And I don't think we should be, in a world in which climate change is a precursor to drought and famine, we need to think about how we develop a strategy for Canada's economy that's designed to serve the people of Canada and to meet our needs in terms of redesign and relocalizing what we're doing.
So you are saying we should stay in it?
That was your
Pardon?
follow-up. You can come back.
You are saying we should stay in it?
Well, we can try to stay in it. But if we're being tariffed to pieces, we need strategies to say, if we can't stay in it, we've got a good exit. I mean, we need to develop alternatives to where we're at now.
Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada. When asked if you wanted to rebuild the party or be Prime Minister, you're the only one who said you wanted to be Prime Minister. Why did you give that answer? And do you think the other candidates lack that ambition, I guess?
Well, I think, as I said, in my experience in politics, amazing things can happen. And I hope people will take the time to look at our holistic goal for Canada that they can see on our website. You know, it's not big, but it's a vision that I think is hopeful. And I've never run in a campaign just to be on a platform or just to be a participant. I've always run to win. And then a whole series of things that are part of being successful. And winning isn't the bottom piece, it's the top piece.
Fuck.
But
man stabbed to death in downtown Ottawa.
I want to be the Prime Minister because I would like to be helping implement the things that I've been talking about. Things like taking the $30 billion that we give to the oil companies annually and turning it into a fund to help 30,000 municipalities across Canada and people who are in those municipalities get $1 million to redesign and regenerate in their communities. And that's what we mean when we're talking about building from the ground up. It's to put resources into the hands of people across Canada. And to me, that's what nation building is all about.
I'll also ask you about Alexandre Boulris, potentially jumping ship, going to Quebec politics. A, have you spoken to him? And then B, how big of a blow would it be to the NDP?
I have not spoken to him, and I would think it would be a huge blow in terms of the NDP and Quebec. I think he's done a brilliant job, and I think his comments on militarism have certainly resonated with me. I would certainly, if I were the leader, I would hope to work with him on that rebuilding in Quebec and help him connect with other people who are progressive in Quebec.
Thank you.
I still have the sax from Long Good Friday playing in my head.
Hey, David again.
Yep, hi, David.
Just one question on behalf of a young voter that was sent in to us. Do you believe your proposed merger of the NDP and the Green Party into the Green Progressive Party will be a possible thing, according to this young voter is asking? And if so, where would the party go from there, as the NDP already has many environmentally progressive ideas? How would you come up with new ones rather than recycling old ones?
Well, you know, if the recycling has never been put into practice, keeping good old ideas isn't a bad thing. I'm working with horses because, David, they actually make economic and biologic sense on our particular farm. But I made the mistake when I first talk about the green democratic progressives. That was a play on the GDP, which economists love. And I thought, well, maybe the GDP would be something the economists would love, right? But that was a play on words, and it was a mistake to bring it up because it's become a focus of many people. We don't have time to try and merge political parties. What we do have time, and what I'm saying we need to do, is the Green Party, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, they need to figure out what they can agree on, which is what they would need to do if they got 51% of the seats, and what they would then try and work on as a government. They need to do that 3-4 years before an election. Price it out, work with the Broadbent Institute, work with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives to put it together as a strong platform, and do that at the central party level, but then let the local riding associations work together to decide who's the one candidate in that riding who will run on that green progressive platform. And then I would hope that one of the major first things in that green progressive platform...
I'm sorry, McPhail. We're going to have to skip through. I'm sure they've gotten to McPherson by now,
ask you to answer the question that was asked once another candidate takes the stage.
Oh, wait.
And try to flip us on our head.
Did I miss McPherson?
Okay, thank you.
Or did she lose the
colleague Avi Lewis
here
earlier
we go.
ideas.
Where's McPherson?
Quebecers
Sorry
are
to the other two,
progressives,
but let's be
Ashton,
real. We got it's a one-person race, and then two people vying for second, and maybe a boost on the second ballot.
Challenge is to get seats out of Montreal. Heather McPherson.
Your colleague Avi Lewis earlier was indicating that the dichotomy that's really kind of overarched this race of are we for ideas or are we for being able to get elected is false, indicating that ideas are how New Democrats get elected. What's your response to that?
Listen, I think we need to have big ideas. The New Democratic Party is the party that comes up with some of these great ideas. But unless you can win your seat, unless you can get more New Democrats elected, none of those ideas matter. You know, we have to be able to win. We have to be able to rebuild our party. I think that's the vision that I have for our party. I think that's what I was putting forward tonight during the debate.
Looking forward, do you have a target? What is realistic in your mind in terms of what the short-term rebuild looks for the NDP?
I think what we really need to do is look across the country and pick up seats where we have lost support, and I think we can do that. You know, I think there are many places across the country where we have seen New Democrats are strong, where people actually thought that they were electing, you know, they were voting for something that they didn't get. You know, I think about the island. I think about the riding we're in right now. You know, Peter Julian is a remarkable member of Parliament, and I can't wait to get him back in the House. But I also think about Southern Ontario. I think about other regions of the country that it's so important that we are showing up. And I think there's real opportunities for New Democrats. There's a real opportunity to grow our party.
Bonsoir, Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada.
Yasmine Mehdi with Radio-Canada.
Vous êtes la candidate qui...
You're the candidate who says she can win. Does that mean you believe the others can't win?
I have won my 3 times. I have won it in Alberta. I have won it against Conservatives. I know how to do that work. It is an urgent moment in time for our country. You know, right now, Canadians are struggling and the world is a dangerous place. And we need to have somebody that can start this rebuilding and start putting our party back on track the day after the leadership race. I am the only one that has a seat in the House of Commons. I am the only one that can start that work on day one.
Par rapport à M. Brice, à la possibilité...
What about Mr. Boulris, who might leave the NDP to join Québec Solidaire? Have you spoken to him, and will you try to persuade him to stay?
Alex, of course, is a dear friend of mine. I have loved working with him, and I've been really grateful for his support and the work that we've been able to do together. And so, you know, of course, I hope that he stays in the party, but I will leave that up to him to comment on.
Hi, David Thornton, CBC News.
Hi, David.
Much of your campaign is built around your electability, that you've gotten elected, you've held a riding for the NDP, especially with the last election. I mean, how would you respond, though, to folks that would say, well, this is a riding that was previously held by the federal NDP, provincially it's held by the Alberta NDP, and you know, it's almost a joke for people in Edmonton that it's called Redmonton. So it's a pretty safe riding in some people's views. So, like, how much of an argument can you make of getting elected?
Let's be very clear. Edmonton Strathcona was a Conservative seat for almost the entire history.
Let me be clear.
You know, it did not become a New Democratic seat until Linda Duncan did the work to get elected. And frankly, the seat now is the strongest in the country because of the work Linda Duncan did, the work that my riding association did, and the work that my team and myself have done. You know, we have built that riding into the strongest NDP seat in the country, and we have worked to bring other ridings alongside. You know, we brought in regional organizing that would happen year-round. We worked with riding associations across Alberta, in the last election into Saskatchewan. You know, we've done the work. That's why that seat is safe. And for me, it means that any seat in this country can be a New Democratic seat. We just have to do the work. And I know how to do that work. I've done that work.
We've spoken to some of the candidates about some reporting that we've seen about Avi Lewis, a previous organization he was involved in, Ldrshp, tried to unionize, and he's facing allegations about union busting or standing in the way, indirectly or directly, of employees forming a union. Rob Ashton said he spoke with Lewis about that. He said that's unacceptable. if I heard him correctly. Do you have any views or anything to say about that?
Well, I don't know the situation, but I will say that we are a party of workers, and union busting is the opposite of what it means to be a New Democrat. You know, we need to be
very, very interesting timing. This dropped today.
Working
too.
to put workers' protections
Good
into
old
legislation.
February surprise.
That is why I am bringing forward legislation to make company unions like the CLAC illegal. We should be standing up for workers, and union busting is a really, really big problem for any candidate. I don't know the situation that Mr. Lewis is being accused of, so I would leave that up to him to speak to that.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, hi, good evening. I'm a reporter from the Canadian Press. How do you think of Mr. Levi's fundraising total, which is about $780,000? Does
His
it place
campaign
him
says
as the
they've
front
raised over
runner?
$1 million.
Listen, our team
as
has
of end of
seen
January.
excitement across the country.
According
And
to
I've
my
made a point
colleague
of
Eleanor
showing
Wand,
up in
who's
places
been
across this
reporting
country.
this.
You know, I just got back from Whitehorse. It was great to be in one of the territories. I've made a point of going from coast to coast, and we have been breaking, you know, every target we set for ourselves. We have raised over $600,000. We have signed up tens of thousands of members. You know, our campaign has a lot of momentum. And I think as we head towards the election in March, I think you'll see that.
And thank you so much. And is it okay to get your thoughts on Ms. Levi's response to the LEAP manifesto attack during the debate? Was the membership wrong in adopting it? Thanks.
So I want to be very clear. The membership did not adopt the LEAP manifesto. The membership voted to look at it. And for me, you know, this happened at a time when Rachel Notley was making real positive wins for people in my province. And the implications were widespread. You know, Rachel Notley cut child poverty in half. You know, she was a leader in bringing in real environmental protections, and that has implications across the country. You know, the idea that Brad Wall was able to use that, the LEAP manifesto, as a way to beat up on the Saskatchewan New Democrats, that's not great. That's not the way that we build our movement. That's not the way that we deliver more for Canadians.
David? That's it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes the press conference.
And you heard it right there. Heather McPherson, the last candidate to address members of the media. So ends the press conference in New Westminster.
I guess maybe she wanted to be
BC.
last if she
So
could be
ends
first.
the official leadership debate
Also,
in
look at that
the greater
background.
Vancouver area. Although we're going to
Look how
continue our
pretty all this
conversation a
shit is
bit
with
as
all the snow.
we're here around the table with Melanie Richer, Matthew Dubé, Eric Grenier, and of course Marc André is here beside me. As we kind of mull over tonight, the word that was used time and again was rebuild. And I want to get
Rachel
your
Notley?
thoughts on the challenge
Is
of
that Queen
rebuilding the
Rachel?
party at this point. Lacking resources, financial, people, low in the polls. Talk to us about the challenge any one of these candidates faces in terms of rebuilding the party at this point.
I don't think anybody thinks it's easy. I think a lot of folks were pretty heartbroken after the last election. But I do think that there's a lot to build on. I think, you know, folks were really proud of the things that we were able to get done in the last few years, and folks understand what sending a New Democrat to Ottawa means. I mentioned earlier that I was on the road the last 2 weeks, and it was sad to hear what people had to say. But what gives me hope in the rebuild is people kept saying, you know, we're so proud of the stuff that you've been able to get done. We know that we need more of you in Ottawa. We're just really scared of Trump. So that first part is really important, and that doesn't go away because of the election results. And you know, to Eric's point earlier about the ceiling or the universe that we have to go talk to people, that also is, I think, a positive sign of people are interested by the things that we've done, are interested by the things that we're saying. So there's an opportunity there to go back and go get those people. I think what's important is we need to be able to say something to them that will make them move their vote to where they are now to back to the party. So I think the challenge is massive, particularly to your point, without the resources, without the people, but the the will of, I think, Canadians and the understanding of what the NDP means and sending an NDP MP to Ottawa for you. I think folks get that. So tapping into how we can remind folks of that and how we can talk to them, I think will be really important. Big job, but not an impossible job.
Yeah, big job for any of the candidates. What would you say to that, Matthew?
No, I think it's important about being realistic about the rebuild and focusing energies and efforts in the right place. And I think that was one of the strong takeaways for me from the debate tonight was that, for the most part, they all seem aware of that and they're all at peace, I dare say, with that. And I would hope so, because that would be a prerequisite for running under these circumstances. So I think that that's a good thing. And I think it's about focusing on regions, finding the right candidates for the right ridings that allow the party to be successful. At the same time, you can't allow that narrow focus to undermine the need for broad pan-Canadian credibility, because ultimately credibility is what puts the NDP back in the conversation. And I personally don't think the next election is one where we're running to form government federally, but that has to be the end goal. And so you have to balance that immediacy of small, local focused efforts with a desire to do it in a way that sets you up for success down the road. I dare say it's what Jack Layton did for his consecutive elections, starting small and building this broader narrative that appealed to a larger and larger base over time.
Eric, what would you say about the challenge?
Well, you just mentioned Jack Layton starting small and building it over time. I think that is the real thing here. This is not going to be a quick fix solution. The next election, the NDP's, unless you can record this and play it back to me, but they're not winning 50, 60 seats in the next election, right? If they can win 12, they should be happy.
Let's go to Danielle Smith.
New Canadians who arrived here,
and then we'll watch At Issue, and then I think I'm heading to bed.
These Albertans were and are a huge strength to our economy and provincial culture. And then came Justin Trudeau's disastrous open border immigration policies, which have caused an unprecedented strain on our healthcare, education, and other social programs. In just the last 5 years of Trudeau's tenure, Alberta grew by almost 600,000 people to more than 5 million, all while Ottawa throttled our most important job-creating industries and prioritized immigration away from economic migrants and instead focused on international students, temporary workers, and asylum seekers. Adding 600,000 people in 5 years is like adding half the city of Calgary or Edmonton in 5 years. Although sustainable immigration has always been an important part of our provincial growth model, throwing the doors wide open to anyone and everyone across the globe has flooded our classrooms, emergency rooms, and social support systems with far too many people, far too quickly. As just one example, our student population has skyrocketed by more than 80,000 students in just the last 4 years, and more than 140,000 students now having English as their additional language. Is it any wonder that our teachers and students are struggling?
Yeah, no, well, it's never, Alberta doesn't make any decisions. It is just a perfect, static place that just creates wealth and oil for the rest of Canada. And it is the only negative things that happen to Alberta are decisions Ottawa makes. And the fact that their entire economy is based around the price of oil, it's not their fault. And when oil goes down, that's Ottawa's fault. When it goes up, that's Alberta's fault. But Alberta gets the credit. Again, I'm being shitty, but don't yell at me. I can feel someone preparing to lecture me on equalization, and I've heard everything you're about to say.
From complexity and crowding. To sum
Not
up,
saying you're wrong, I'm
budget
just
challenge.
saying.
Low oil prices combined with an out-of-control federal immigration policies are together driving unsustainable budget deficits, not just here, but across the country. That's the problem. So what's the solution? Today, I want to share with you a three-part strategy to address this budget challenge without resorting to deep and disruptive cuts to core social services. The long-term strategy was announced last year. Our government has already initiated an investment plan to build the Alberta Heritage Fund to more than $250 billion by 2050. We are already ahead of schedule by reinvesting rather than spending interest earned in the fund each year and investing the bulk of large surpluses in years with high oil prices like we saw in 2023. Our government has already doubled the Heritage Fund from roughly $16 billion in 2021 to almost $32 billion today. That's how quickly you could move the dial. We just have to stick with it. If future Alberta governments continue with this strategy through to 2050, the annual interest earned on the Heritage Fund each year will ensure we can weather any short-term dip in oil and gas prices and non-renewable resource revenue. When we reach this goal, Alberta will be forever free from its over-reliance on oil and gas revenues. We need to stay the course. In addition to our long-term strategy, our government also has a medium-term strategy to double Alberta's oil and gas production and exports to more than 8 million barrels a day by 2035. Doing so will allow us to secure higher resource revenues for our budget, even when energy prices are lower like they are today. And when energy prices bump back up, our province will see large surpluses, which will help us to reach the $250 billion by 2050 Heritage Fund target that I just outlined. That is why our government will continue to work diligently on implementing the energy agreement signed with Ottawa to build 1.3 million barrels per day of additional pipeline capacity to the West Coast, while also working with our great Canadian pipeline companies to expand pipeline capacity headed south. We will also continue to work on our agreement signed with Ontario to send hundreds of thousands of barrels of Alberta crude to their refineries and explore opportunities to unlock deepwater port access for our energy resources in the Maritimes, Quebec, and the Hudson's Bay. Alberta will double our pipeline capacity over the next 10 years, and our oil producers will grow and fill that pipe. We will not permit Alberta's and Canada's most valuable resource deposit, worth almost $10 trillion, to remain in the ground to the detriment of millions of Canadians. That's not going to happen. Now, having a medium and long-term plan is very important. However, what are we going to do about our budget situation in the short term? After all, we can't just sit by waiting and hoping for world oil prices to recover, nor can we trust the federal government to manage our immigration system in the best interests of Albertans. So here's the short-term plan. First off, our government will not be implementing drastic cuts to social services. The approved wage increases for our doctors, nurses, and teachers will remain in place so we can continue to attract the skilled professionals needed to catch up with our growth. Albertans have learned from experience that during times of low oil prices, the key is to limit increases in spending and focus it on building the schools, health facilities, roads, and other infrastructure needed to build a strong and diversified economy with a world-class standard of living. So instead of drastic cuts in upcoming budgets, we will instead be cutting unnecessary bureaucracy, improving efficiencies in program
especially from the premier,
and prioritizing needs before wants as much as possible. We will continue to limit overall government spending increases to below inflation and population growth.
Secession, one of these
income testing for social
things I don't know
so
yet,
more
but she hasn't exactly been
sustainable.
super
And
forceful in pushing
we will
back
address
on the
head-on the challenge of
secessionism.
out-of-control immigration levels that are overwhelming our core social services. The changes we need to make to immigration are a significant departure from the status quo, and therefore I am seeking a referendum mandate from Albertans to implement them. On October 19th, 2026, we will hold a provincial referendum primarily focused on how Albertans want our government to deal with the issue of immigration, as well as steps we can take as a province to strengthen our constitutional and fiscal position within a united Canada. These were far and away the issues most strongly identified by Albertans during last year's Alberta Next panel, town halls, and online submissions. And in my view, it is time to act on them. The fact is, Alberta taxpayers can no longer be asked to continue to subsidize the entire country through equalization and federal transfers, permit the federal government to flood our borders with new arrivals, and then give free access to our most generous in the country social programs to anyone who moves here. This is not only grossly unfair to Alberta taxpayers, but also financially crippling and undercuts the quality of our healthcare, education, and other social services. The October 19th referendum will therefore include the following questions. Number one, do you support the government of Alberta taking increased control over immigration for the purpose of decreasing immigration to more sustainable levels, prioritizing economic...
I love that Alberta is just literally becoming cowboy Quebec. Like, this could, like, you just switched this at, like, do you support the government of Quebec taking increased control over immigration for the purpose of decreasing immigration to more sustainable levels, prioritizing, like, this is just ensuring Quebecers have first priority new employment opportunities and to safeguard the French language. That's all you'd need to add onto this. It's cowboy Quebec. It's what it's becoming. We're gonna, if you gave me a time machine and I skipped ahead, maybe I'll be like small liberal on my this estimation. Be like, I'll skip ahead 20 years. skip ahead 20 years, and if I showed up and the government of the day is calling Alberta a nation within a nation, I would not blink an eye.
Migration and ensuring Albertans
That's assuming
have
it's
first
still
priority
a
to new
part
employment
of Canada.
opportunities.
Who
Number
knows?
2,
20 years.
do you support
Thinking
the
about what
government
the world is going to be like in 20 years just terrified me.
of Alberta
It's almost not worth thinking about.
introducing a law mandating only Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status will be eligible for provincially funded programs.
A law mandating only Canadian citizens, permanent residents, individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status will be eligible for provincially funded programs such as individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status. So are there going to be federally approved immigration statuses that Alberta doesn't approve of? Therefore, they won't have access to these programs? Because that clause right there, and individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status, seems like it nullifies this whole thing. Because I'm pretty sure, is that not already the case? Is this not already the case? Who are the people who aren't these types of people, who don't fall into any of these categories, who are eligible for provincially funded programs? And why do you need a referendum for that?
Such as
Yeah, I know. I that's the thing. I know the answer to all of these questions.
health, education, and other social services. Number 3, assuming that all citizens and permanent residents continue to qualify for social support programs as they do now, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law requiring all individuals with a non-permanent legal immigration status to be resident in Alberta for at least 12 months before qualifying for any provincially funded social support program?
She's coming for the snowbirds. That's it. Those are the two constituencies you don't mess with, is Quebecers and the snowbirds. This will be her undoing. Is coming after the snowbirds.
Number 4, assuming.
Also, I like how it said. Oh wait, never mind. I thought it said for at least 12 months in a year, because I'm like, what do you mean at least? Are there years where there's more? But no, it's just for at least 12 months before they can qualify. Okay, so never mind. I think snowbirds are safe then. Never mind.
Any provincially funded social support programs. Number 4, assuming that all citizens and permanent residents continue to qualify for public.
Should we bring back putting unproductive seniors and kicking them off on an ice floe?
Healthcare and education as they do now, do you support the government of Alberta charging a reasonable fee or premium to individuals with a non-permanent immigration status living in Alberta for their and their families' use of the healthcare and education?
That one seems like it's going to be not like the rest of them are kind of, but this one seems like the fourth one so far. This is the most controversial. So we're going to be. So if you were here. So are they going to be like, if they go to the emergency room, would they be charged if they can't prove their citizenship, if they're not a citizen
Systems.
or a permanent resident?
Number 5, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law requiring individuals to provide proof of citizenship, such as a passport, birth certificate, or citizenship card,
please,
to be eligible to vote in a provincial
Daniel
election?
Smith would like to see a papers.
To strengthen Alberta's constitutional and fiscal position within a united Canada election.
So the government of Alberta introducing a law requiring individuals to provide proof of citizenship to be eligible to vote in a provincial election. Oh, never mind. That's never mind. I mean, there's a part of me where it's like maybe it doesn't have to be super strict, but some with your name on it and a picture. Just so we know that that you're the right person. I would assume that's already the case in almost all circumstances.
To strengthen Alberta's constitutional and fiscal position within a united Canada, we will also be asking you the following questions on the referendum ballot. Do you support the Government of Alberta proactively working with other willing provinces to amend the Canadian Constitution in the following ways? A, have provincial governments and not the federal government select the justices appointed to provincial King's Bench and appeals courts. B, abolish the unelected federal Senate. C, allow provinces to opt out of federal programs intruding on provincial jurisdictions such as health, education, and social services without losing any of the associated federal funding for use in their own provincial social programs.
Allow provinces to opt out of federal programs intruding on jurisdictions such as health, education, and social services without losing any of the associated... programs intruding on provincial jurisdictions such as health, education, and social services without losing any of the associated federal funding for use in their own... So you still keep giving us the money, but you're not allowed to put any conditions on it.
D, better protect provincial rights from federal interference.
D's nuts.
By giving a province's laws dealing with provincial or shared constitutional areas of jurisdiction priority over federal laws when in conflict with one another.
Oh my God, she's doing states' rights. We're doing states' rights, people. Let's go. Let's go.
Forward to the debate on these critically important ideas and to receive your decision on the questions outlined so that our government can get to work on implementing an immigration policy that puts the needs of Albertans first, as well as constitutional reforms needed to make Alberta stronger and more sovereign within a united Canada. In closing, I want you to know how confident I am in the judgment of Albertans on these and other delicate issues. Although there are some politicians
we're not doing the
commentators
referendum
that fear
stuff
direct
this
democracy,
fall.
such as referendums, I do not. I trust the judgment of Albertans. I know that as a province, we will thoughtfully ponder, debate, and ultimately come to a wise decision on these questions that will benefit our families and our fellow Albertans for generations, just as we've always done. May our beautiful province forever remain strong and free. Thank you and good night.
Yeah, so this is a completely separate one. Also, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's like an AI-generated baby that talks about Calgary, and it this is why I don't like AI, because this made me hate a fake baby. It's just so disconcerting, because it's clearly like, yeah, where is it? Let me see, because it's like this goddamn fake AI cowboy baby has been taunting me. God damn it. Because now I'm not gonna be able to find it, and you're all just gonna think I'm losing my mind. Where is this demon child? Because now it's like, no way I'm going to be able to find this now. It's like it's like a come to Calgary with your business sort of ad, but it's like a cowboy baby, but it's AI generated, but also like just an adult dude just like doing a read of a script that at a couple points I'm like, you could have edited out these. Like he like stumbles over his words a couple times. Where is this goddamn... So I wish because it's got like a specific name. And like anything I would put in the search bar to find it would be insane. So I'm not, god damn it, I'm just never gonna find it. If I find it, I will send it. Put it in the Discord. Next time it shows up on my timeline. Alright, where Where's the at issue? All right.
At issue tonight, another Conservative crosses the floor. After announcing his resignation last year, Alberta MP Matt Jeneroux has decided to stay on, but for the Liberals.
For me, it felt disingenuine and quite simply wrong to be sitting on the sidelines anymore. So I reached out to the Prime Minister's office and will be joining his caucus, and I couldn't be more proud.
3 MPs have now left Pierre Poilievre's team, and while he survived his leadership review with 87%, there are questions about how he manages his caucus. So what does the latest floor crossing mean for the Conservative Party? What does it mean for Pierre Poilievre's leadership going forward? I feel like we've asked this question before. I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, good to see you all.
Twice before.
We'll start with the floor crossing, but I also want to throw Jamil Jivani into the mix as part of sort of the questions around how Mr. Poilievre is managing his caucus. But Chantal, I'll just start with you. It seemed as though Matt Jeneroux, for lack of a better word, had been sort of contained, that he was just going to resign and go off. And apparently the Liberals kept working on things and they've managed to claim him. What do you make of 3 MPs in about 3 months crossing the floor?
Well, the first thing I make is that the 2 of them are long-standing Conservatives. I think Matt Jeneroux was elected as a Conservative since 2015 and previously as a Conservative to the Edmonton Legislative Assembly. So these are not, at least 2 of them, new Conservative converts who have suddenly discovered that they failed to take the right path. I think the message, you asked about caucus management. I would say some of what is happening now are chickens coming home to roost, i.e. there was not a lot of empathic, constructive caucus management until the last election because Mr. Poilievre felt he didn't have to do anything about his MPs. He was going to win the election and they were going to be lucky to be in government. If you treat people badly when you're on the way up, you will tend to meet them on the way down. And he is on the way down. He doesn't want an election. Those members who are floor crossing do not want an election either, and they've at least bought him some insurance against that.
I mean, Andrew, I did feel,
and if there's another one,
in Calgary, I felt coming out of Calgary as though there was a page that had been turned, a sort of a reset. Well, silly me, I guess. Where do you think we are at then in terms of his leadership?
Well, it's not just the leader, it's the party and the leader are both under a lot of pressure. And the pressure is Donald Trump. Every time Donald Trump erupts and says something nasty, the Liberals go up in the polls, the Conservatives go down. They know, at least some of them know, they have to address that, they have to take a firmer stand. But they can't, they feel, because a significant section of their party is actually pretty okay with Donald Trump. And so you have this ridiculous situation where Jamil Jivani goes down to Washington and effectively takes the side of Donald Trump on a number of issues, portrays them as sympathetic and reasonable, portrays Canadians as being engaged in a hissy fit, et cetera. I'm all in favor of MPs being able to speak their mind. It's fine to criticize the government of the day, but when you go down and take the side of the government that is attempting at the very least to destroy the trade agreement, possibly to annex the country, you've crossed a few lines, and it's very damaging to the party's brand. They know it, at least, again, the sensible ones do. But what actual consequences followed for Jamil Jivani? Very little. Slap on the wrist at most. So you've got that. You've got these. It did seem
like that as soon as those hissy fit comments broke, the tide completely turned. Like there was a bunch of conservatives that were sort of defending it, and then you saw them like almost do a 180 heel turn on it.
And nobody seems to think they're at an end. You've got a very divided party, and Mr. Poilievre is to some extent the victim of that, and to some extent the architect of it.
What do you make of that, Althea? Is there something that Pierre Poilievre could have done to prevent this or to better manage Jamil Jivani? Certainly Conservatives I talked to were very perplexed at why Jamil Jivani was not being sort of managed better.
Raked across the coals. There's a lot of things happening.
Yes.
If you just, inside the caucus, you basically have a bunch of MPs who are restless, who have been sitting on the opposition benches for a really long time. And it was one thing to take kind of the heavy-handed approach of the leader when he was plus 25 points in the polls, but now he is dragging the party down with him. He is deeply unpopular. They feel that Pierre Poilievre is not talking about the issues that their constituents are talking about. Andrew talked about Donald Trump. That is key. Up until this week, Pierre Poilievre hadn't mentioned Donald Trump, really. So there's that. There is the way caucus is being managed. Jamil Jivani gets to go down to D.C., as Andrew pointed out, and basically live stream his entire trip. And these MPs are, playing by the rules, asking the leader if they can go on.
Sir Timo, thank you for the 100 bits. I appreciate it.
Politics.
Every little bit helps for on the struggling reporter's salary.
TV program and talk to the media, and they're being told no, absolutely not. And a little bit of that loosened after the election,
any good sound
but
alerts
not
for that?
really that much. And so they feel like they don't have a voice. They don't support the direction of the party. They don't understand what their leader is doing. He seems to be more focused on the Twitter influencers than he is on the constituents they hear about at the door. And in some
I hope
cases,
so too.
And we've
Hopefully
seen
we
some
get.
of the floor crossers,
Are you talking about
they're
the
more
hockey
likely to
tomorrow?
win their seats as Liberals. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the mix that is convincing people that, why are they sticking with Pierre Poilievre when they have the possibility of influencing things in a government that they don't disagree with?
So I think we're going to the finals.
I mean, conservatives.
tomorrow
The other thing that some of them
Or
are saying
Saturday,
is that he just needs time.
I have to double check.
And if he can get the time, because there won't be an election, we all seem to agree because of the way things are going, then it will make a difference. Chantal.
Okay, I covered
for the
John
NDP
Turner,
leadership race. I think Abby's
after the
win.
84
it
election
feels like
on the same basis.
well, it depends
he
on what
just needs
happens on like the
and
second,
the time
third
that he
ballot
got
stuff.
was 4 or 5 years
see what
of
happens.
backstabbing by his own members. At some point, the notion has gone through the minds of many members in caucus that there are alternatives to Mr. Poilievre as leader and that they would be better served by him. That vote you went to, which was supposed to turn a page, a number of people said that vote is okay because we're going to lose the next election to Mark Carney and we will then move on to a winner. It wasn't Pierre Poilievre needs time and he's going to take us to victory. Also, keep in mind that Quebec and Atlantic Canada and half of Ontario was barely represented at that vote. Yeah. So the MPs from those regions are not really bound by whatever happened in Calgary. But when you put all of that together, what you have is a mix of MPs. Those that want to stay would like Mr. Poilievre to not be there in 3 years, and those that want to go have a good excuse. The last time you saw MPs do that with a good excuse was the unity crisis after the referendum. People have forgotten that Jean Chrétien raided Joe Clark's Tory caucus. And the reason the Quebec MPs who went to the Liberals from Quebec on that was federalist versus sovereigntist. Well, now it's the good fight is Mark Carney is fighting it, and we want to be on the side of the good fight. I'm not saying that's totally the reason, but it does give cover to floor crossers.
Yeah. It does, but it seems that then that's an impossible situation for Pierre Poilievre, Andrew.
Yeah, I might dare to suggest that the polls might have something to do with it. Something happened in the last few weeks. First of all, Poilievre himself got no lift coming out of the convention, so he may have sold well in the hall, but not to the country at large. Secondly, what had previously been a leadership gap but not a party gap, that is to say, Poilievre trails Mark Carney in the leadership numbers by over 20 points, but until recently was only about 2 or 3 points behind the parties were. In the last couple of weeks, it's moved to about an 8 or 9 point gap. So it's starting to translate, that leadership gap is starting to translate into party gap. And at that point, people look at that and go, well, he can't win for us. And that's probably his worst sin in the eyes of many MPs.
Last minute to you, Althea.
Do you want to go back on this idea that there is not going to be an election? Because the Conservatives, many of them are convinced that there will be. And in fact, that they kind of think that their leader is baiting one by suggesting that what Mr. Carney is doing by trying to gobble together a majority government through so-called backroom deals, that's why Pierre Poilievre called them on social media this week, gives the Prime Minister a legitimacy, an actual legitimacy, not suggesting the opposition is obstructionist.
Can do that, but
really
it'll be very interesting to see whether or not you can get that first ballot. Because if they go into a second or third ballot, things could get squirrely.
And so they are convinced that is still on the table. Liberal MPs, though, say that is absolutely not on the table, and the Prime Minister wants to be assured of a victory and is not assured of a victory at the numbers that he would like them, and so he will not call one. But I don't think that's completely off the table yet.
Okay. At issue, NDP leadership. 5 candidates are competing to lead the New Democrats and bring them back to party status. The candidates have different backgrounds: a parliamentarian, a farmer, a social worker, a union leader, and an activist, with MP Heather McPherson and Avi Lewis seen as frontrunners. So what comes next for the New Democratic Party? And has this race helped the party appeal to more Canadians? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. Should say we are recording this before their second and final debate that's happening tonight. But we wanted to sort of get a sense of where you all think things are at and what it tells you about where the party is headed at this stage. Althea.
I feel harsh saying this, but nowhere. Like, what has happened this week is that we've heard that Alexandre Ldrshp, the sole Montreal NDP MP, is thinking of jumping ship to Québec Solidaire. He told me he wouldn't comment on rumors, but he didn't deny it. And, you know, he fronted the NDP French language debate, which was mostly a bilingual English debate last fall. And that debate was I'm sorry to say, I feel bad, a disaster. Like, they don't speak French. Avi Lewis had the best French, and it's not that great. And you obviously see, like, how are they going to appeal to the 8 million Canadians living in that province? And you know, this could have been a moment where there's a candidate. Which is an
interesting number, because that's basically like 8 million and some change is basically how much votes the Liberals and Conservatives got in the last election.
In light of the way that Prime Minister Carney is governing, there is room and a need for progressive alternative on the left. And, you know, we should be joining forces with the Greens and uniting disenchanted Liberals under the fold into a practical force. Nobody is saying that. And so you have like a radical ideological agenda with Avi Lewis, who's a terrific communicator.
And everyone yelled at him.
Doesn't seem to have been able to lift off her campaign, and she's the one who's kind of the more pragmatic candidate, if you wish. I feel bad for them, but it has not gone well.
Yeah, you don't have to feel bad for anybody. That's what this panel is about. It is surprising to me that they haven't found the room that Althea is talking about. That they are talking, you know, why are they not talking more about climate change? Why are they talking?
I mean, I do kind of feel, because it's like you're like I do have a soft spot for the underdog in any situation.
Talking about AI so much,
it's like you kind of do like at least like we're supposed to be a parliamentary democracy. We're supposed to have more than 2 parties, at the very least. And it's like, come on, third party, figure this shit out, get it together.
What do you make of what you're seeing and hearing?
But they may be talking about all that, but they don't have an audience at this point. Why? In part, it's not just on them. In part, because people at this point, voters, are still focused on picking the right prime minister.
Well, then get your shit together. Get it all together and put it in a backpack. All your shit, so it's together. And if you got to take it somewhere, you know? Take it to the shit store and sell it. Or put it in a shit museum. I don't care what you do. You just got to get it together.
That was.
Get your shit together.
That's Althea Raj.
Right.
Yeah. And
that's her
the NDP
message to the NDP.
Was not in the race last year, and is not in the race with those 3 candidates. Yes, bad times, worse times are coming for the NDP. We talked about polls earlier. They show the NDP dead in the water. In Quebec, Alexandre Ldrshp is the last standing member of the so-called Orange Wave, but the only reason he gets elected is because of his name, and not because of the NDP. The NDP is back 20 years in Quebec as a foreign object, and that debate that Althea described, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
I have watched progressive conservative debates in the bad times for that party with candidates who were not great at French. I have never watched a disaster like the French, so-called French language debate of the NDP. But at the same time, look who Mark Carney has recruited as a candidate to run in Bill Blair's former riding in Scarborough. The deputy leader of the Ontario NDP and legislature. And at the same time, you've got NDP leaders in Alberta, Naeem mentioned, or in British Columbia, basically saying, do not come and mess things up for us. My concern, if I were the NDP,
Prince
NDP
Andrew
member, I would be worried that the two main candidates, Avi Lewis and Heather McPherson, will struggle to unify the other side of that battle, because they are on different planets, and I'm not sure either of them is on a winning planet.
And you know, you didn't mention there, of course, Wab Kinew, an NDP premier who is, you know, successful, and lots of people are looking at as sort of the future.
It's not confirmed yet, but like Althea said, she asked him about it, but he didn't. He said he wouldn't comment on rumors, but he didn't explicitly deny it either.
Something. Anyway, Andrew, your thoughts.
Well, I hate to be the odd man out, but I think
please do.
I think my colleagues are far too optimistic. The problem, another problem that they're facing is, for the first time in their history, they're now on the back foot on both fronts, on both the left and their right flanks. So the Liberals have been eating into their support amongst soft left progressives. The Conservatives are eating into their support amongst blue-collar workers, unionized workers. The NDP is always an uneasy coalition between those two because they have disagreements about things like whether we should be building stuff. I fear that this leadership race may exacerbate that. I mean, Heather McPherson probably has the best chance of holding on to those soft left voters. Rob Ashton, the union candidate, probably has the best chance of holding on to the blue-collar vote. Avi Lewis, you can well imagine repelling both of them. Too extreme for the soft left, too hostile to industry for the unionized workers. And if that's the case, he may excite,
I thought you were just typing those things out.
Of downtown progressives.
You're just typing out face
on the
blue
far
wide
left
eyes
of the spectrum, but at the cost of any chance of the party
chat.
breaking out of the trap that it's now in.
I didn't see the actual.
But it also, doesn't it indicate too that the best they could hope for right now is official party status? Like the dreams of Jack Layton forming government are.
Don't do it to him. Don't do it to Chantal. I know what you're gonna say. Don't do it to him. They're already dead.
Long gone, Chantal.
That sounds like a hard goal to attain, to tell you the truth. If they're going to lose, for instance, their lone Quebec member, Mr. Boulris, they're not going to keep that seat. They're not even going to be
hitting them and hitting them and hitting them.
And the story is the same for many of the current members of the party, those who are in the House of Commons. So this isn't a party that is growing. It's actually moving backwards. I saw some seat projections based on polls that showed, 2 NDP seats left. And that's all based on personality, not on party branding.
Yeah, and says and does not even go near the idea that the Liberals are still trying to attract NDP MPs to cross the floor as well, which we've heard about. And
here's the thing. You know how we all thought the Matt Genru stuff was all done and dusted? That story was over, and then it wasn't. Starting to rethink whether or not the Laurie Idlout story is over. I don't think Carney gives up that easily, actually.
Has been denied. Okay.
And I've noticed a bit of a pro-Nunavut charm offensive from the NDP, so maybe the NDP might know that shit's still, that's not a done deal either. I know nothing, but I'm like, that's just like, well, if Genru was still having conversations, did Laurie stop having conversations?
There's one that might still cross, but the
that's why I thought Ashton would be the smart choice. Is he's got that sort of, he could bridge that sort of the sort of more safe pragmatism that I think McPherson could also appeal to, but also that kind of blue collar labor shit kicker energy that they would probably need to, like, in the same way that, like, Poilievre seemed like he was designed to be a Trudeau-seeking missile. I could see Ashton doing that in the same way, and same thing with Carney. I think Ashton would be a very interesting sort of contrast to Poilievre and Carney in the House of Commons. I think that was just more. I'm like, ooh, that would be an interesting question period. I think Avi kind of just felt like it was more of a heading further down the direction that they were already heading with Jagmeet Singh. But again, what the hell do I know? I apparently am not. This is why I'm not a pundit. I let other people tell me what's going to happen. Most people I talk to think that the NDP needs to get back to that, which is why Lewis is. That's what again. With all of the NDP people I've spoken to who are like, we need to get back to like the labor roots, tone down the like progressive culture war stuff. Unsaid, but you can feel the energy of maybe we go with a white guy this time. That's not me. That's the energy they're giving off. I thought that's what I mean, is I thought that was like, okay, so this is the guy you wanted, right? And apparently it's not. Apparently it's not the guy they wanted. Even though it seems like to a T the description of the guy they said they needed. But again, I guess the party intelligentsia is not the same as the membership.
Might just,
which is always a good thing to remember.
Sit as independents, depending on who. No,
we're in.
That's the other part.
Just like the debate, we're in energetic, aggressive agreement on this one, Mantra.
Really spoken about, because some of them do not see themselves sitting, for example, in Avi Lewis's tent. And so he is like the best case scenario for both the Conservatives and the Liberals, and they'll talk openly about it. Yeah. But he has the most momentum with the members whose support he has courted. He's raised the most money. He seems to be way ahead of everybody else.
At issue, North American free trade as Canada's new ambassador starts his job in Washington. The minister responsible spent the week in Mexico looking for new opportunities. As the CUSMA review approaches, Dominic LeBlanc says Canada has been preparing.
We have been doing the work necessary in Canada to prepare for this not surprising review that was built into
this was a fairly major trade mission.
So have the Mexicans and so have the Americans.
Or Mexico, not China.
They'll break down what the latest is when it comes to the future of CUSMA and our negotiations with the U.S. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. Yes, we talk about it every week. These guys made that point to me.
That video was from yesterday.
Already, but there are a couple of little threads I think we can pull on. Dominic LeBlanc.
Oh my God, we got 7 on YouTube, 8 on Twitch.
Ever to Mexico.
Big things. I'm coming for you, Hassan.
Ambassador in Washington taking up post.
Coming for the throne.
Of the former clerk and High Commissioner to the UK as the chief negotiator. There are some things being put in place here. So I don't know, Andrew, if you want to read tea leaves about what this tells you about how the government views the state of these talks.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see whether the talks take place. To judge by some of the commentary, or not commentary, but the off-the-record quotes from both sides, the president's thinking about busting up the whole trilateral deal and just trying to negotiate 2 bilateral deals. The Canadian side saying, well, we're not sure we're going to even just going to walk away perhaps from the table. Obviously, a lot of that can be written off as pre-bargaining positioning, but when you're dealing with somebody as volatile as Trump, I'm not sure you can necessarily write these things off. He would face a firestorm in his own backyard if he were to break up the deal. But he's done similar things before that were just as irritating to his base. He doesn't seem to care that much. So it's too soon to tell, but there's real potential for this thing to break down. And again, as we've said many times on the show, the Canadian side has to be prepared to walk away, because we've no idea what kind of demands are going to be made at this table, far beyond trade, usual items of trade, and we have no basis for being able to assume that any undertakings that were made by the Trump side would be kept.
Right. I mean, not to get too inside baseball, but I do think the change in who's doing these talks is sort of interesting because the ambassador is someone who's trusted by the Prime Minister, is a business guy. The negotiator, Jenna Charette, knows government and knows how to, get things moving on that front. So I don't know whether that makes a difference with a Donald Trump, but it does seem to me like pieces are being put in place to best position us moving forward. I don't know if anyone agrees with that. Chantal?
Well, at the very least, it does show that we're taking this seriously. Right. We're not just sitting back and saying, well, we're not going to be serious about this because there's no end game here. And that is what Canada should be doing. Mark Wiseman probably has a good relationship with the Prime Minister. After all, he appointed him. But he has no government experience, really, federal government experience, and no diplomatic experience. So the notion that you would go to Janice Charette, who's got all of that, former clerk under 2 prime ministers, interestingly, she rose to fame as the clerk, the top civil servant under Stephen Harper, in the same way that Mark Carney became bank governor under Stephen Harper and was reappointed later by Justin Trudeau. So that's fairly rare, but also served in the UK.
No, yeah, I'm not saying they're not excited. That's like if you're talking about. That's my point, is my expectations of what I thought would get people, like the NDP would be, of which candidate would garner the most excitement, and who is actually garnering. That's the point. Like, I agree with you. I've seen that excitement for Avi, especially in Toronto, and yeah, not to comment on any of the performance. I'm just talking about like my knee-jerk first blush reaction. This was back when I think they did like their sort of like candidate forum. It was called Mouseland. They did it in Ottawa, and I saw I think it was Avi, Rob Ashton, and Heather McPherson were all on the stage. And I thought, and outside of the French, I was like, okay, so I think Rob Ashton will do pretty well. But I was like, everything since then has been, well, I guess I'm the idiot. I'm the fool. Because everybody loves Avi.
So she's got all the
not everybody, but a lot of people love Avi.
And I think possibly as importantly, she was part of the inner circle that was around Mark Carney during his leadership campaign. Mm-hmm. So she's not just a name. She has a professional relationship with the current Prime Minister. And I think that's probably smart, because if this is all going to go south, as in fail, you need to demonstrate that you put your strongest team forward and gave it a real try.
Althea, last word to you on this.
I agree with everything Chantal has said. It's probably not a bad thing to reset the relationship, but I think one can easily view Janice Charrette's appointment as, I don't want to say babysitter, but basically she's come in to guide the new ambassador who doesn't know where the bodies are buried and doesn't know how to affect change and how to get the Ottawa machine working. And so, yes, she was on the transition team. Yes, she was part of the Liberal leader's campaign. She knows him very well. But I think it's also about making sure that ambassador is given the tools and the framework in which to succeed. And so I think you can see it through that angle.
Okay, I fear we'll be talking about this almost every week until something is sorted out, but you'll live with me. Thank you all. That is that issue for this week. I'm Rosemary Barton. Thank you for watching.
Alrighty. That's 11:30. We're gonna put a lid. We're gonna call it 30 for 30. 30 on 30. Not a big fan of the government. Not a big fan of the government.
Let me speak to the people, Piccolo. Let me speak. No one's stopping you. They need to hear this. 30. They need to hear this. What I'm not a big fan of the government. 30 on 30. I'm not a big fan of the government. 30 on 30 on 30. I'm not a big fan of the government. 30, 30, 30. I'm not a big fan of the government. Not a big fan. Not a big
Unofficial Left Hand Stew closing theme. But I appreciate you all hanging out with me. Which pool are we gonna drop the kitties off in? We got Maple takes. What's he talking about? What's he saying? Oh, he's talking about the peace stuff. Why are we frozen?
I've been too exposed to it before. Probably have a really good impression of Tennille and Tony.
All right, we'll jump over to.
Avi was great.
Just watch get some Maple takes reaction to this.
That was basically the extent of it. Also, Yves Engler showed up and was screaming outside the theater, and you could actually hear him at one point of the broadcast.
Oh, I couldn't hear that. Must have missed that. Maybe I was up and like walking around.
All right. Let's take a look at JD Vance's full remarks in trying to secure the peace in Israel-Gaza. Let's take a look.
Thanks everybody for hanging out. If you're on Twitch, follow. If you got some of those Twitch primes, send them my way.
Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Don't pay me, get.
But also for the kind words about me personally. I
keep want to say Elon Musk, but the bald guy. Get the bald guy to give me money. Or if you're on YouTube, just like, subscribe, share out the video.
And just stare at the
every little bit helps. I appreciate y'all.
But I have three very brief messages. First of all,
bro,
good night. Good luck, and keep your stick on the ice, folks.
Soundboard, because I want a crickets sound effect.
And we're ready to go.
Sound effect
all right.
For every time JD Vance tries to be funny.